Hey, this is Soma79 with a special announcement. My new Mega Mix is up. My MF Doom Mega Mix, Oxidation Moonsday, is now available. Go to www.soma79.com/doom to check it out. It's a 30-minute mix that I did of MF Doom raps over my own beats. I really enjoy it. I hope you really enjoy it. So check it out. Tell a friend. Peace. Hey, thank you so much for joining me on episode 52 of the Articulate Ox podcast. That means that we made the entire year, one episode per week this year. So that was one of my resolutions for 2023, and we hit it. And I couldn't have had a better guest than my friend Katy Newton, who's an upcycle fashion designer and an art therapist. This episode's actually sort of a Frankenstein of a couple episodes. We recorded a 79 questions episode a few months back where she asked me a bunch of questions and I asked her a bunch of random questions, but we never actually ended up releasing it. And now we're going to release that, as well as this short, about 30-minute episode where that was taped more recently, I think a week or two ago, where we talk about this fashion show that Katy is working on now. That's you're definitely going to want to check out if you're in the Indianapolis area. She's a really amazing, warm-hearted, smart, funny, really cool person who, I don't know, I'm lucky to have got to know her. And if you do know her, you already know what I'm talking about. If you don't know her, then watch the episode and I'm sure you'll love her as much as everybody else does. So thank you so much, Katy. Thank you for everybody for being a part of the first year of the Articulate Ox podcast. It really means a lot to me, all the feedback that I've gotten. And I have some exciting guests coming up for next year. I actually had someone pretty random reach out to me today, someone I've been a fan of for a very long time. Their manager reached out to me and asked if I want to interview them. So I'm working on that now. You know, who knows? These things sometimes fall apart, so I don't want to say who it is. But if it happens, then I don't know. It's a feather in my hat that I'm glad to have there. So thank you, everybody. I hope you had a great 2023. Strap on for 2024. I think it's going to be a wild one. And I don't know, I just would encourage everybody to take this time to reflect on, what went well this year and what didn't, and what we can all do next year to be a little more kinder, a little more kind and more understanding, and try to have a little more empathy for each other. That's going to be one of my goals for next year, and I hope some of you feel the same way. So thank you so much again. Enjoy the Katy Newton interview, both of them, the Katy Tootin interviews. So yeah. Have a good one. Peace. That's just
Meet Ann with wings clipped, quick to flip manuscripts, cause her man went from damaged kid to damn he's rich, but she still can't stand the way he manages to never put nickels in the can for the cancer kids. Plus he cheats at cornhole and brags that he won, so she lost interest like porno after she comes. My DM started jingling, baby, as it was done. 2 seconds later I can hear the snapping of her gums. She calls me half Dodge Challenger, half Lip Gallagher.
Hey, welcome to the 52nd episode of the Articulate Ox podcast. That is correct. One episode for every week this year. We have done it. My guest today is who better but Katy Newton, art therapist, upcycle artist, mental health therapist, lots of other stuff. Fashion icon in the making. How are you doing today?
I'm great. How are you doing? Did you notice we have on matching outfits today?
We do. You're all Run DMC and I'm all Beastie Boys.
Right. That's right. I didn't even plan that. So today we're doing this from my new art studio. There's some awesome stuff. I have some buds back here. Are you guys back there? We have some fashion stuff over here. All my clothes. There's some mannequins in the background back there. So I'm excited to be in this space. It's a really neat space. It's not exactly like zoned for people. So there's no toilet. But you know what? We're artists, so we improvise and adapt.
Yes.
So what's cool about this space is that it was actually one of the first and only AIDS hospitals or clinics in Indiana.
Wow.
And so there's this really neat group of drag queens in Indianapolis called the Bag Ladies, and they have full beards and they kind of dress like little old ladies you'd see on the bus, but they come here and they do like a tribute show in this space every year to honor this space as one of the as one of the like pioneering AIDS clinics for end of life phase. So that's what I'm really excited to be in this space. There's really creative people in here. There's some graffiti artists. There's a taxidermy artist in here, which is that's a wild process to witness.
I bet, yeah.
But all the animals die by peaceful means. But yeah, no, it's really cool to be in here. I'm happy to be broadcasting here. So
it's awesome. It looks super cool. How long have you been in there for?
Since October.
Very nice.
Yeah,
very
since
nice.
October. The other space I was in was like a charter school that lost its charter. And so I was in the basement. Every time you could hear the toilet flush, it just like water streaming. It just was like bad vibes all around. So this place is just kind of like.
Well, no, that problem there. There's no toilet.
Yeah.
Problem solved.
That's true. You have a good point, but I'd rather have to go pee outside or poop in a bucket than have to be in that building with all that bad juju. It was like all of these relics of like education and like personal enrichment that once existed, and now they're just like there, kind of like covered in cobwebs and stuff. So I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, that's
awesome. Make the sacrifice.
That's awesome. So what are you working on now? You said you have. Is there we just talked about it a little bit before we started. Why don't you talk a little bit about it?
Sure, I'd love to. So I am a person that has been making stuff essentially out of trash and like discarded clothing since 2014. That started at the Idle Drug Museum, which is a Native American arts museum in Indianapolis, and I started doing the Day of the Dead show there. And just started as a model, and then I started working more of a production role and a directorial role, and started making all of the outfits and collecting materials. And from there, I got my own fashion show called Le Alta Moda. And it was done, given by a grant in an underserved neighborhood where essentially we created a fashion show, and everything was made out of trash or discarded clothing, upcycled clothing. And so each one of the people in the fashion show is given a character. So it's not just a fashion show like you see like models just walking wearing stuff. They're each are given a character, like you're the sorceress from like the 23rd parallel, or you're the witch doctor, or I had in the first iteration of this, we had Fidel Castro and Frida Kahlo dancing like the tango down the runway and stuff. So there's this really storyline piece to it, and that's how I create the fashion. Is everybody gets a character, and then the outfit is based around that. So we're working on the 4th iteration of that show now. We've done it every year since then. We got a grant from the Indianapolis Neighborhood Coalition, and I'm really excited to be doing this show again. It's going to be again in another underserved neighborhood over by the Speedway in Indianapolis, Indy 500. And that's what we're getting ready to work on now. So I'm excited to be here.
Wow. So how much work goes into preparing for something like that?
So I'd say we have 20 looks. And so I have quite a big collection of things now, so I can kind of piece together some things. But given that we were given a grant this time, I think the expectation is to make new things. I've got free time and I have a new space, so I'm feeling really inspired, and I'm on a trajectory to make some new stuff. So I'd say it's probably going to take me like 6 weeks, something like that.
So with the grant, what was the process like in securing that?
So what you do essentially, what we talked about in our last interview was that Indianapolis was given a $43 million endowment from Eli Lilly for the arts. So there's so many art opportunities in Indianapolis. And so there's all of these grant opportunities out there. And essentially you just submit what your idea is. And then after that, you kind of go through this training where you meet with people from the organization to tell you how to successfully execute an idea. Like we met on Zoom and we did these different talks and stuff like that. And but we'd already been through that process, so that was kind of information was kind of a refresher for me. But you essentially just tell them what your idea is, what the population served is going to be, how this will impact the community, how you plan to spend the money. And then they approve the grant or they don't approve it, and they approved our grant. And so I'm really glad for that. I think our shows have been such a success and such a unique thing that we bring to the city. So it was, they kind of encouraged us to apply again, because they're like, we'd love for you guys to do another one, apply for this grant. And so we did.
Cool. I mean, so does this give you inspiration to think even bigger for next time, now that like, you know that this has happened? Does it sort of make you think about what else is possible?
Yeah, absolutely it does. It's good to get to kind of create a buzz and get people excited about it, because people know this show is coming. They've anticipated it over the years. And the cool thing about it is kind of like it keeps on since it's an annual thing, it pops up in people's stories, and then everybody remembers that, and they're posting pictures from the last year's event, and it just kind of creates a buzz, and so they know that it's coming and they're anticipating that. And so then you get the models involved, and word of mouth spreads, and then people get really excited about it. And it's kind of this organic growth through social media and through all of the participants, and such a large show, and there's so many different models and makeup artists and photographers involved. There's just a lot of people that are out there talking about Le Automotive.
Any particular themes for this year?
I don't know. What do you guys think? Themes? I don't know. So the last show I did was for the Indy 500. I think I did that after we talked. And so we did a fashion show, and we had in Indiana, there's lots of corn. And so instead of Marie Antoinette, we had Merle Antoinette. And Libby, can you bring that Jiffy mix over here? So Merle Antoinette, she had on this paper wig that I made out of a cycling helmet, but all my notes from graduate school. So she carried this instead, and this is a box of Jiffy corn mix instead of cake. God. And then she wore
so I'm not, so as somebody who may not be as familiar with Jiffy corn mix, that looks like something that's existed since my grandparents were born. What is Jiffy corn mix? Because that hasn't made it out to wherever I'm living. I don't know where I'm living.
No, he's from, where are you from?
I'm from Massachusetts. I'm in Western Mass.
Oh, yeah. Oh, boy. Oh, you're missing out. Jiffy corn mix is a staple from the South up all the way up until Chicago. I mean, Jiffy corn mix is essentially cornbread muffins. And so that's something that in Indiana, we pride ourselves on corn. We are a big corn producing state here. There's more than corn. Yes, Lonnie, thank you. There's more than corn in Indiana. But corn is like what our farmers thrive on out here. And so it's just kind of become this beloved ongoing.
I live amongst tobacco farms. Actually, it's corn and tobacco and asparagus is what they grow up, because I live in a farm town, and it's like
asparagus.
Asparagus. Hadley, Mass is big on asparagus. That's where I am.
That's a fancy vegetable, that sounds like fancy people.
Bougie, like you might get that the entire town's piss smells terrible, though. You can smell it from space.
Right, that's true. I know, but that is unique about asparagus. It is the only vegetable that makes your pee smell weird.
I know. That's crazy.
I don't know what that is. That's fancy. That's fancy people pee.
Yeah, but we have corn. We have corn, tobacco, and asparagus. Is what we grow up here. All right. So you were saying about the Jiffy hat. That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. So that sort of thing. So something that one consider the audience, who's going to be in the audience, what would they find exciting, and then also sometimes it depends on, well, I went into this trying to make a mermaid and I made a huge mistake, and now it's like a fairy goddess or something like that, so it just kind of also depends on the course of how the materials take. But some of the coolest things I've made have always been like something I went into with one plan and made a massive mistake, and then a purse turned into a hat or something like that. So
what a lot of artists don't understand is how much, like, when we especially in this country, failure isn't celebrated as being a part of success as much as it really should. But if you're an artist, like, you have to get so used to failing. It's like being a skateboarder. You're gonna fall down a million times. But in those failures, you find so much other stuff. As I knock my water bottle down, that's my failure for the day.
Right. No, you're exactly right. And that's part of what I really like about it, is like experimenting with materials. And what's unique about what I do is, since I'm using it out of found objects or trash, is like I don't exactly know how like the warped Tupperware lids are going to fit with zip ties. So you just have to start experimenting with them. If I worked with the same material every time, it would take that kind of curiosity experimental piece out of it. And that's what I really like about what I do, because I learn something new every time, because I'm always working with new materials.
Yeah, it certainly increases the whimsy factor, which I think for something like that is like pretty important. It's like that's what I think a lot of people are kind of looking for out of something like that.
Right.
If it's going to be something out of the normal, you might as well go all the way.
Right. And so what's neat about it is that when I do fashion shows, I like to also have models that are also artists, and they like to talk about arts. And what a fun thing about it is going up to the people in the crowd after the show, or depending on the event, it might be an event where they're mingling with people, and they get to talk about what the outfit's made out of. Like, this is actually made out of inner tubes, or this is actually made out of placemats, that sort of thing. And so people like to hear that sort of thing, because it's kind of like really exciting to think that you could take these things and transform them into something beautiful and wearable.
Right. Is that the overall message you would say of the show? Is that like, if you wanted somebody to walk, if there was like a kind of an overarching heady, like, message to send people home with, what do you think it really is from these shows?
What I think it is from these shows is that is that you don't really need money to be fabulous. I feel like the fashion industry is really wasteful. I feel like it seems elitist. It seems like it seems non-inclusive, you know, in many ways, that it has to be like this big fancy thing, and that essentially that reducing like waste, you can find things that value in things that other people have discarded, or even if it's trash or found objects, that you can make something really neat from it. So I think the main takeaway is that I'd want people to be resourceful, and that I want them to be unique, because the more unique the material is, the more unique the item's going to be. And so it ends up being something that nobody else on this planet could have. I always like to like lean into like being different. And I think that when you source your materials in a unusual way, that you get exactly that.
Yeah, that's an excellent point. It's funny you talk about the how the expense and stuff like that. Literally, when I was buying said non-alcoholic Heineken that I'm drinking now, in case anyone was wondering, this is about 2 hours ago. The guy at the store would not believe that my jacket didn't cost $600. I was wearing this like puffy Nike jacket that I remember specifically getting on sale 5 years ago for $75. And the guy, I think, thought I was trying to lie about how cheap it was, because like, mind you, I didn't bring this up, he did. Because like I didn't want to get raw. It was a very odd encounter. But I was like, no, what I'm interested in is I like that blend of finding the best bargain and like in the coolest way to flip something. Like I'm not into like these. I mean, creativity can be done by anybody. It's like thrift store, make your own. Like there's so many, like there's no need to keep filling these giants holes of fashion that exist, like these giant, like, you know, piles of just clothes, that fast fashion clothes that don't even need to exist. It's crazy. Stuff that's
Yeah, exactly right. And the thing about fast fashion is they're made from materials that don't biodegrade. So like somewhere out there's a landfill filled with Forever 21 tops that they're made of like polyester material, or kind of like weird fiber materials, and so they don't biodegrade. So that's stuff that I'll use a lot in my things, because it kind of, even though it's cheaply made, the quality, like the craftsmanship is cheaply made, the material is kind of indestructible because it's this like weird rayon type of plastic mix or whatever. So, but it's interesting you say that. So I always thought that bragging about getting a bargain was a Midwestern thing, because anytime somebody will come up to you and say, I love that outfit, and you say, I got it on sale for $5 at Kohl's. And so that's a really big Midwestern thing. So I'm glad to know that's more universal, or at least
I'm all about that. It's like, because for me, it's not about just the right item, it's about the right price. It's because I don't know, that's part of the fun of like finding the right outfits and stuff like that.
Right, exactly. And that's part of the philosophy of our show. The right price is that it's free. So try to source every material that we use in the show. It was a donated material, a found material, or like a reclaimed material from a dumpster or something. So that's the thing, is to absolutely reduce cost. So all of the money that we get from the grant can then be paid to the models and to the other people that are in the show.
That's a great point.
So yeah, so we don't have to wait. We don't have to use any of the money of the grant to be able to buy anything, because everything is going to, there's enough materials in this world for a million fashion shows, you know.
That's such a great message in its own right, that you're like, okay, we're putting on this show, you're going to see things that you haven't seen before, but all the money is going towards the individuals and not like the production. Because even if you go see like U2, so much of the money you're spending is going towards the production, even though that is obviously giving people jobs, but like that is a really great message as well, that it's like it all is going to support the artist. Because these days, even when you try to support an artist by doing something and they're only getting like 3% of what you're supporting them, like buying a record or something, it's so disheartening. You're like, oh, support an artist, buy their record, they're gonna get like a fraction of 10%, you know.
Right, exactly. Yeah. So that's the thing. The materials can be a big piece of what any artist has to do, is to invest in materials. And so there's enough materials out there, you can just source them on your own. And plus you can find really cool stuff.
Yeah, so I was gonna ask about that. So how does the process, so you're starting off with this next one, you said it probably takes about 6 weeks to do. Do you start off with maybe stuff that they've been gathering over the year that you had sort of an idea for? Do you start off with an idea what you want and look for it? Like what's that process like?
So let me show you something I've got going on right now. So somebody gave me a donation of like probably 1,000 of these bandanas.
Oh, that's really cool looking. I like that pattern. Does that say something? No. All right.
Yeah, it says 2022, and then it says something kind of like psychedelic. So what I got inspired to do with this is I looked at what I had, and so I had, where's that?
Matches our outfits.
I have this, that I've had this since high school. This is a pink corset. And so what I'm doing is I'm sewing all the bandanas together. I'm going to cover the corset with the bandanas, like sew it on there, and then I'm making a pair of bell bottoms to go with it. And then I have blue cording that I'm going to put on it. So what inspired me for that specific thing was one item I already had, and then the materials that somebody donated to me. And then I just kind of can visualize, I have like a knack for visualizing silhouettes or piecing garments together in my mind, and then bringing it together in that way. And then I'll have like a big fur in the headpiece or something. And so all of the models, they also usually have a headpiece. They also have massive hair or some sort of wig, fantasy makeup, so it's just like a whole the worst person is like a walking production, the whole thing. And they're given a storyline, and then they get to act out on the runway. So it's kind of like performance art in a really like gritty type of way, because it's not like theater. It's more edgier. It's edgier than that. It's not as refined.
Quick sidebar. What led to you buying a pink corset in high school?
Well, actually, I spray painted it pink. Because when I bought it, it was brown, but that wasn't edgy enough. But Tim, if you knew me in high school, oh my goodness, we'd be having a totally different conversation.
I think we got into a little bit of that in the first. If you want to hear those stories, go back to your first appearance. I think we got a little bit into it.
Yes, I went to Booker T. Washington Alternative High School for bad girls. So, I mean, of course, it was not as risque as it got. It was intense. So
yeah,
well,
that's cool.
But
so
yeah, go ahead.
Have you already hired the models, or have you have people in mind, or?
I have some in mind. I'd like to bring on some new folks, though. I would like to bring in some sort of wild card, like somebody that's going to come get really insane backstage. Because that's a big part of it for the models is the backstage experience, because they all kind of help each other. Like we'll have a makeup artist or two, but they kind of help each other. But their backstage experience, when you see their photos that they post from their backstage experience, it's just like the wildest stuff that happens. So I'd like to bring in somebody new, maybe somebody that we don't know that well, maybe somebody that has like a rep of being unstable.
Oh, come on. Why just invite me right here. You're obviously hinting at me. I'll come down, I'll drink a 6-pack of non-alcoholic beers, raise some hell, and we'll have a good time.
Yes, that's right. And be like, the funny thing, that guy's not even drunk. That's non-alcoholic beer. So yeah, that's something like that. So I would like to bring in some new people. I like to have drag performers because they are very confident on the runway. Yeah. They can do tricks, they can do flips, their makeup skills are off the hook. They just have a lot of confidence because they already are performers to begin with. But I'm also open to having other people with other designs this time. I think there's been people that have expressed interest in participating in Le Ultimo 4 that are up and coming designers. And that part, then my only parameters for that is create a category for yourself. Like this is like bohemian chic, or this is, I don't know, dead animal realness or whatever. Something.
Dead animal realness.
Give some taxidermy realness.
That sounds like a beat that the name of a beat somebody would send me on like a list of like 20 like beats of like where they made dead animal realness would be one of them.
Dead animal realness, right? I'm thinking of that because the studio space right across from me that I'm like looking at is the taxidermy guy or whatever. And so there's some really strange hybrid baby doll / dead raccoon / owl.
Excuse me? Yeah. So this isn't like your average taxidermist who I know for a fact are also a strange breed. Like it's like,
This is so Tim, do you follow Crank Maggot on Instagram?
Crank Magnet is not something I follow.
Sorry, no, Crank Maggot is his name.
Oh, okay.
So there's an artist in New Hampshire, his name's Crank Maggot, and he I got connected to him through a tattoo artist through fashion that is in New Hampshire, and he makes these amazing kind of like he uses epoxy and he uses like resin and plaster, and then he'll take like a mannequin and then mix it with like an animal head, but it's kind of a strange form of taxidermy. But these things they're so seamless in this way. But he is a big inspiration for this artist that's in here right now. But yeah, there's some strange baby doll animal hybrid art over there, and I'm just staring into the abyss right now.
Is that so? I'm one of those people who like I can be very sensitive to imagery and stuff like that. And so for me, it's like I can look at that and go, if somebody really put a lot of thought into that or whatever, like, and it is impressive. But for me, I see something like that once, welcome to my nightmares for the next 10 years. It can be disturbing. Do you understand the appeal of that in a way is somebody gonna make a lamp out of one of those things and have in their living room every day of their life? Or am I just missing out on a swath of society?
I think I don't know. I've never met anybody that's a collector of things like that necessarily, but
you're gonna see them walking into that shop all the time, so you're about to.
Right. This is true. So I think that I think sometimes that people that have like a darker edge, might be drawn to that sort of thing. Now, what I can say about the animals here in this art is that none of them were like killed or anything like that. They were all like sourced. It was another thing like that. Some people are really into like,
they were all organ donors. It has
they
on all their
willed
driver's
themselves
license.
to die for art, is what we say. They willed themselves to die.
I mean, the reason I asked that question is because it's not, I hope it didn't sound like condescending anyway, but I have this way that like, if I see something, this has happened in rap a lot with like mumble rap, where I go, I can't, this is super popular, but I can't wrap my ears around it into what the other people are hearing. So I attempt to go out of my way to find some sort of context, like watch a documentary. And when I watched this like little Peep documentary, and it showed actually what the shows and the performing and the context, it all made sense. So in that way, I form an understanding of what these people are like in a way, and I sort of helps me in my day-to-day life. So whenever there's art that I really don't understand, I need some way to put it into context so I can like ground it, you know?
So you're saying by understanding the artist, you can understand the art? Is that what you mean?
Well, by
learning
understanding like the environment where the art feels most appropriate, I guess. That it's like,
Right.
like taking it no longer out of just something that I plucked out of the ether of the internet and grasped in my hand and saying, okay, what is this actually, what world does this belong in? And then you start understanding, at least for me, understand it a little bit better.
Yes,
You know?
I'd say this space we're in right now, it absolutely belongs here with no toilet and with all the other stuff. If you were to see all the other things here, it really fits in this space. But I know the person that creates it personally, and it definitely just fits their like vibe, you know, their whole thing.
That's really
So a
cool.
lot of edgy people up in here. So
yeah. So are you planning to be a model in this in your upcoming show?
no, because in the show, what I do is I have a co-host. His name's Melt Face. My alter ego in these shows is Ultra 5000. That's the name that I go by. And so I'm the person that reads the storyline for the model. I'm the person that says what types of material. I'm essentially an MC for my own
Like the
show.
MC,
And
yeah.
that's my favorite thing. If I could have any job in the world, it would be like a talk show host or an MC. I really like to be an MC. And so myself and my co-host, we kind of bounce jokes off of each other because there's a huge camp element to what we do. It's like, the first show I took very seriously because it was kind of, the whole storyline kind of we're all characters from my own personal life, just kind of going from destruction to like rebirth into the arts and things. And so I took it really seriously, but I found our niche, and really what it is really this type of campy thing that actually has really cool craftsmanship and all the things, but it's essentially like kind of like drag in that way that there's a sense of humor to it. So I write out the scripts and the jokes and the descriptions of the outfits and things like that. And so I will be an MC for that.
So when you're talking about, did you say about 20 different looks that you're saying for this So are you kind of designing all of that? Are you giving, because obviously, I mean, you're not designing 20 outfits yourself, are you?
Yeah, I mean that's normal. That's what I've done.
Okay, wow.
Yeah. So, but like I said before, that there are some people that express interest in ones that are like up and coming designers, and I would totally give them a space to do that. Actually, Taxidermy guy is going to have some of his dead animal fashion in the show. So yeah, so that's going to be a thing. So, but the thing is I have such a large collection of things, and that I'm proficient at making these outfits that I can do it pretty quickly without having to really do a whole lot. But I do want to make some new pieces, and I have been really busy lately. So but now I've got my time freed up again, so I'm going to start dedicating more time to this. So I can do it pretty quick, and it's not like I'm making like fine tailored things that are, you know, I'm essentially working with trash, so I can just kind of like rip and tear.
They're unpredictable. They're it's like, because they're not regular cloth, the way they may react is unpredictable to some degree.
Exactly.
You know?
Exactly.
So,
but I think that the ability in my artistry is to be able to like adapt and improvise. And so when it goes left, I just keep following it left and then let it turn into something else. So
yeah, that's a good move. Yeah. That's part of just accepting that, knowing how to, it's one of the things about that artist taught me is like, you know, always find a way to turn something around. It's like nothing is totally lost. And it's like, as long as you can roll the punches, you're going to get something pretty cool. And as long as you stick with it. So
it goes with the whole thing, because when people throw something away, they just feel like it's totally lost. It's just of no value anymore. But it's like, you know, when you have that visualization pace, you can be like, no, I can see how this would be useful. So it just goes with the whole like style in which I make things, is that being able to just roll with something that other people would find, you know, not valuable or useful.
yeah. You mentioned before that, you know, drag performers tend to have a lot of confidence, and that it just occurred to me that seems to be, maybe, is that where you think a lot of drag performers gain their confidence? Is it through that ability to go up there on stage? Is that really, because for me, it's like I didn't have my confidence until I decided to actually put myself out there in that way. Is that a key component to it, where it's
I think so. I think it probably does have a lot to do with it. And I think also finding a community that is supportive in that way. I remember in our last iteration of Le Alta Moda, there was a a young lady who was, I think, 12 years old, and she was just absolutely terrified. She was really excited about the show, but when the rehearsal came, the day of show came, she cried and got overwhelmed when it's her time to go on the runway. And my friend, French accent, he's a man, he's from France.
Is his name French accent?
Name's French accent,
That's
yeah.
a great name.
You guys know French accent, yeah. So French accent. So he looks like Sean Connery, but he wears high stripper heels every day. Okay. So he's like Sean Connery, like on the top, and he's dressed in a suit, but then he's wearing these high heels. He came out and he took this young woman by the hand, guided her out to the runway, showed her how to walk. Everybody clapped, everybody cheered for her, and like gave her overwhelming support. And it was just precious because she was so scared. And he like came out and just like guided her and showed her how to walk. And it's like, and it's just so that sort of thing. And then when it came day of the show, she was totally confident. She was ready to go. And that kind of set her up for the rest of the year. Her family's like, she feels so good about herself. She shows all of her friends all these things. And that one moment that she had where she got to be a star, and I think she was, Lonnie, do you remember the young lady that did that? We gave her like a beauty sash and a crown, and she was kind of like this, like,
oh yeah, that is true.
Remember her? Yeah. And so she kind of got, yeah, she got to be like she was the like pageant queen character of the runway. And it was just it was so neat. And so that whole thing gave her a lot of confidence in just that one experience. And so when her family talked to me later on, they were just talking about how she had, gotten more friends, and she's on TikTok and she has all this stuff, I guess she's in the TikTok age or whatever, but it was neat to see that young person gain confidence through our show, essentially. And I think the same thing going back to drag performers, when you are potentially a part of a marginalized group, and then you find the community that embraces you. Not only do they embrace you, they bring out your best self and maybe even your most wildest creative self. And that's where I feel like my group of friends and just the art community in general in Indianapolis does that. And when I first did my very first fashion show, that's when I really found people that were doing healthy things with their time. They were exchanging creative ideas freely. I didn't meet them in a bar. I didn't meet them at a party. I met them when we all had a shared common interest, which was this first fashion show. And those people end up to be my forever friends. And it really helped me develop identity, finding that group of people. And that was through the arts,
I haven't heard that term, doing healthy things with their time, which it sounds it's such a beautiful way to put like the way I try to live my life. And it's like, I'm gonna definitely be using that again, because it definitely, it speaks to a certain type of person. Because it's like, it's not really judgmental, but it's sort of being like, look, you have to be an adult, like a mature adult.
Yeah, exactly. And
which is not too much to ask for at this point in our lives. It's like, we're not old, but we're not kids. It's like,
exactly. That's what I thought.
How we dress.
I was so impressed, because I was like, not only were they doing like healthy things, but they were like doing personally enriching things. Like, it was, that fashion show was such a big production because it was Day of the Dead at the museum. So they were building altars, because they have the altars for Day of the Dead. They were making flowers for, like arcs. They were making props. They were making outfits. They were writing poetry. So it was this whole kind of like cauldron of different types of things for this one big production, and everybody was volunteering their time there, and everybody had some artistic ability, or they were just interested and they wanted to be a support person. And that's what I was at the time. And so seeing these people doing really cool stuff with their time, I was like, wow, this is really, really neat. And I felt just so privileged to be there. I took it very seriously. And that just set the trajectory for the rest of my art stuff from that 2014 fashion show.
Yeah, it sort of takes me back to when I was a kid, and I grew up in a very small area, didn't really have cable, didn't have any of this stuff. And like, I remember seeing a Digital Underground video for like No Nose Job. And I remember seeing Humpty Hump and being like, this guy is different than anybody else I've ever seen in my life. And I'm like, if this guy can do this, I can do whatever. And for me, it's like, that was the thing that broke through. And I am, we live in a society now that wants to get rid of drag, story hour, or all that shit. But it's like, there's somebody, like, if I hadn't seen that Humpty Hump video, my life would have been so much differently. And it's like, if somebody, to try to rob people of these experiences that may really be eye-opening, it's like what you described a minute ago, the 12-year-old girl, is not indoctrination. That is allowing somebody to be who they need to be, and get there quicker than I was allowed to. you know?
Absolutely. Yeah. And you're absolutely right about that. And people, I think when you are given the opportunity to be embraced and express yourself at a young age, I mean, who knows how your life would turn out? You know, who knows if I would have been exposed to things like this when I was younger, who knows what could have been in store for me. I mean, I like where things are at for me today, but you know, I was grateful for that young woman to have that opportunity. And the drag people, the drag performers that I have in my shows are some of the most creative, interesting people. I can give them a concept like, here, you're going to be the witch doctor, but then they take it to the next level. They take it beyond what I could have even imagined. I consider myself to be a visionary, creative person, but they are the ones that can take it above and beyond. And I just love that so much. And yeah, robbing people from that type of experience, is tragic, you know. It would be tragic.
That's interesting too, that I remember. So when I was younger, and other people I know or artists is younger, it was all about what you could do yourself. It's like, oh, I don't want your help, I can do this, we don't need to. It's like, and then as you get older and start to appreciate others more, you realize it really is all about the collaboration, because that's where that joy really comes. It can only be so exciting if you're just in a room by yourself, but when you're working to something together with somebody, it sounds so corny when I'm saying it now, but it's really what I live for at this point. You know, it's so much more fulfilling.
Yeah. Yeah, it's amazing. I've been so impressed by watching your show. I mean, every week you have come out with something. You have the neatest people on there. And I think it's such a neat thing how curious you are to learn about other people, how much you've absorbed from other people and promote other people. You've had some of the, like Tony Coda, the guy that was on your show, that was his name. Is he the one that does, is it Tony Coda? Was that his name?
That doesn't sound familiar.
I'm sorry. Who's the artist that makes things with dollar bills?
Oh, Abtil.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's okay. Happy 30th birthday, Abtil. You just turned 30 last week. He's in America
Abtil,
right now.
Happy birthday, Abtil. I'm a fan. I'm a fan. That's right, Lonnie.
He just did Digital Underground bill for me. Actually, I haven't shown it online yet, but he did one. He did one for me because I had it. Just obviously what I just said was for that same album.
All of your art is so cool. I mean, like I found you years ago when I was preparing to get into graduate school. I found you on the internet through your art on Instagram, and then remember I asked you to help me with a zine.
Yeah,
and we've been friends ever since then. And then I got to talk to you in real life, right?
I know. I would. The stuff that you're doing, I really wish I'd love to get out there at some point to like check some of this stuff out too, because it sounds so amazing. And it's like, I mean, I live in a pretty like liberally area. Northampton, Massachusetts is sort of like right up the alley and stuff you're doing, and it's just like I feel like no one's doing stuff as cool as what you're doing. I'm so.
I mean, the city's doing cool stuff like that. Like Indianapolis is a racing city, but it's also an art city. It really is. It's there's so much going on out here. There's so many opportunities for artists of all levels, and it's just an exciting place to be. But I mean, you'd fit right in. People would just be like, bring it in, bring it in, come in here, you know. So
well, let me ask you this. So with Indiana, you know, I don't know a whole lot about the state in general, but the things I think of are Woody Boyd, Larry Bird, Notre Dame, Mike Pence, and the Jackson family, and like maybe David Letterman on a good day.
Yeah, we're not fans
so
of
like
Pence.
For me, Indiana, and this is me trying to, and obviously I'm speaking stereotypes, it seemed to me of a very like, you know, uptight, maybe like kind of uptight, maybe like very Christian-y type state. Do I have that wrong, or am I like?
You're right, but guess what? We live in Indianapolis. Indianapolis is the enclave of the liberal artists.
But that's what I'm curious about, is like, because you know, is there? Does it feel like, is there a big separation between Indianapolis and the rest of Indiana, and how does it impact the arts there?
Yes, there is. And there is a big difference there. I think that if you were a person, it's easy to come from, because I came from Terre Haute, Indiana. My friends here, Lonnie, born and bred Indianapolis. Yeah. Libby's from a small town. And so I think if you were to, you can come from the small towns, Indianapolis, and find your thing, even if you're not a liberal arty type, you know, you'll find a thing here. But going from Indianapolis outward would be difficult, right? If you were born and bred here and you're in this culture here, it would be difficult to go to a smaller town from here, because it is very conservative. Mike Pence is from here, you know. This is a red state. There's limited abortion access here. There's really conservative viewpoints here, and you know, that's fine, whatever, but that's not really the vibe of Indianapolis at all. So it would be difficult to go outward from here and try to have the same type of lifestyle or find the same type of support system in some of the other parts of Indiana.
Well, I remember I had a close friend who went to Notre Dame. This was 20-something years ago, and I was told it's very difficult to go off campus because most of the students were scared to, and I'm just like, and then the rules of being on campus. I'm not gonna get into the whole thing now, but like it's just I'm trying to expand my understanding of what because I haven't spent much time in the Midwest. I've been to Chicago once or twice, but that's just Chicago. It's not like it's not Illinois.
Chicago's cool. Yeah, I mean Chicago's a really neat space. But yeah, Indianapolis, come out here anytime you want to come out here.
Right. So so this is, like I mentioned before at the very beginning, this is the last episode of the year. My goal this year was this podcast started. The first episode was the first week of this year. My goal is to do an episode every week, and this will be the last one. So barring, any major Zoom outages, I've met that goal. I'm pretty big on New Year's resolutions. Usually every year I make 5, 6, 7, and then I usually achieve most of them, or the other ones that I don't usually ends up being some reason. But like, so I'm working on setting mine for next year. How about you? Are you big on resolutions, or is it just another day for you?
You know what? I like the concept of a resolution. I don't think I've ever stuck to one, but I have. Last time we talked, my goal was to be able to do a pull-up.
Oh yeah, how's that going?
I'm still working on it. I've actually lost 50 pounds since last time you talked to me. So 50. That's the thing. 50 pounds. Yeah, I lost 50 pounds since last time we talked. So I started doing like a boot camp type of thing at a local gym. There's some people, it's called West Indy Barbell, and it's like a power lifter gym where like there's like biking people in there doing stuff.
Holy shit.
And so my husband went in there and learned from these big muscle people how to work out and stuff and how to eat right. And so I'm still working on that. But the second goal is to learn how to sea walk. And then I want to be able to document both of those things on the internet. So me doing a pull up and then immediately bust into sea walk after that because I just did a pull up. And so
I mean, I don't want to point out the fact that you are dressed like a blood right now, talking about sea walking.
Right.
And so is that like attempt at unity, or what are we doing here?
I feel conflicted, but yeah, it's a sign of unity. It's a sign of wanting to bring them together. So, but that's what I want to do. But, I've achieved a lot of goals. I feel really good at where I'm at in my life right now. Not completing this fashion show and doing it well and making the Grant people proud will be a good goal. But I think just continuing to focus on health and getting back into arts. I just led a 200-hour yoga teacher training as a leader where I taught other people to be yoga teachers. Took up a lot of my time. Very personally enriching experience watching these young women go from, yoga students to yoga teachers, and then getting to evaluate them and guide them and lead them through those principles was pretty cool, but it was time consuming. So I didn't get to do much art. So doing more art, doing a pull up and sea walk. So watch out for those things. 2024.
Hey, it's you got 12 months. I believe in you. I think you can do it.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah, I think for me, because I'm a little OCD, and when I put like a date on a calendar, it really helps me to be able to say, okay, it's going to start now and it's going to go for then. It's like that for me, that always really benefits me in general. So I think that's one of the reasons why, for me, resolutions have always really paid off, because it's just, I'm excited. I get excited for it. Even if it's something that is like, I have this stupid thing where at work, when I'm on Slack, all sort of level of real punctuation and capitalization is totally out the window. It's like, I'll start a sentence with a lowercase I, I'll capitalize, and I'm just like, it looks like something that like a serial killer would do. And I'm like, this has to end next year. I'm like, that's it. I'm going to actually, because it's like when you don't see anybody in person ever, because you work remotely, it's like, this is all I'm being judged by. I need to fix it. So that's one of my goals.
That's a good point. This is the guy with there's a lowercase guy I. Like we expected you to be like this, drinking the non-alcoholic beer at the party, wearing the Ryman and Stealing sweatshirt.
I know. It's like, it's a very OCD thing for somebody who's OCD to be OCDing about, but what are you going to do?
That's interesting. So
meet Ann with wings clips, quick to flip manuscripts, cause her man went from damaged kid to damn he's rich, but she still can't stand the way he manages to never put nickels in the can for the cancer kids. Plus he cheats at cornhole and brags that he won, so she lost interest like porno after she comes. My DM started jingling, baby, as it was done. 2 seconds later I can hear the snapping of her gums. She calls me half Dodge Challenger, half Lip Gallagher. I'm happy that I luckily sat next to her in algebra. I tried to hold her down, but I just couldn't balance her between the million meetings that I keep in my calendar. Plus odds aren't too sloppy that I know why my cell is blowing up probably, but I should check just as well. Call the cops, see if I can get a hold and tell if that's copyrights yell raising hell inside the holding cell.
smooth type guy. Listen, I'm the shit I need 2-time ply. Part of my soul on my head sky high. The weed smoke cover my body, so I try. Put a scent on like sunblock. Summertime's body season, so keep your gun cocked. I count beers in the cooler, cause when the fun stops, that's when the arguments happen. In the gunshots, it's summertime. Backyards where we play cards. Spitting in cipher, the homie trade bars. Dominoes slam on the table, we take charge. I got a style you can make large.
See, motherfucking right. Yeah, it's over. Guilty. Honest. You know what it is. Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's right. This is a summer joint, right? Yeah. You know, try not to get caught. Don't get no probation. Don't do that. Stay low. Stay out the way. All my people, stay out the way. Friendly message from your friendly neighborhood felon, C-Dub.
Hey, welcome to the Articulate Ox podcast. I am your host, Soma79. What's going on today? I have my guest, Katy Newton, with us. Every time I kick these off, my words get all mumbled at the beginning. I have my guest. No one says that. Katy Newton, return guest. How you doing today?
I'm good. I'm glad. It feels good to be back, man.
Yes, it's awesome. You had one of our, I think the most popular episodes so far was when you did 79 questions. So today we're doing it again, except it's gonna be half questions for you and half questions for me. So
I love that. I have so many questions to ask. That's great. I know. I have been watching the views to see how many views I have, which maybe that's kind of sad, but still I'm
I have too.
There's another view on my episode, so I'm interested. So I did have some people reach out to me after the first episode. They're like, I listened to the whole thing, it was great, all that sort of thing. But then there's got to obviously be people out there that watched it that did not reach out to me afterwards and say anything. So
yeah, I
have like a couple of like diehard fans of my work and stuff that first thing they're like, I'm listening to the whole thing, I want to know all of it. So
that's
but
awesome.
I did find out that what constitutes a view on YouTube is if they watch 30 seconds of it.
Yeah, it's not much. Yeah, I know.
You're right. So they could have been accidental. They could have said 30 seconds. I don't like this anymore. Or they could have watched the whole thing. And those that did, they got a lot out of it. So,
but the plus side is 30 seconds is actually longer than people give it credit for. Because it's like you can be annoyed in like 2 seconds.
True.
The amount of, I'm one of those people who I kind of don't watch a lot of videos, because if you show me, I'd much rather read an article than watch a video. Because once I know how much time it's going to take up, whether it's a half a second or an hour, I'm out. I'm like, I always convince myself, I can read faster than whatever it is.
Really? Yeah, that's interesting. Well, I feel like I can usually tell right away. It's like, all right, like the cut of this person's jib or whatever, the way the package is being presented, and I can just cut it off.
Yeah. My jib's not for everybody.
The jib is not, nor is mine. And I've come to realize that that's something you really have to work with, especially if you do social work, or if you're just a sensitive person. Not everybody likes the cut of your jib. It's not you, it's them. You're just not for them. So
yeah. Well, I always use the example of, you have a band like U2 that's like the most popular band in the world, probably. I could totally do without U2. It's like, even if you're the most popular band in the world, the most popular ever in the world, there's gonna be tons of people who either don't like you or just don't even care that you exist. So
right. Exactly.
It's not bothering Bono. It's not gonna bother me.
Yeah, no, Bono is doing just fine without us. I'm not a huge YouTube fan either, but I heard this. I was listening to like a TED talk trying to like make sense of hyper focusing on the negative things. Like if I have like an art therapy group, 9 out of 10 people love it. The one person's like, nah, I don't like it. And I will like obsess over that. So it's like, there was a YouTube person that put out this like sort of like evolutionary type of gene where like cavemen had to always be vigilant of threats all of the time. So in this evolutionary sense, we are vigilant of threats. And that's why we hyper focus on that, because if there's a threat out there, we have to like adapt and adjust to be able to overcome that or face that or whatever. And so there's some sort of like pre-programming that makes you fixate on those things, but it's how much attention you give it. So it's kind of moved into dialectical behavioral type of thing of how much attention do you give this thought. You just let the thought come in and out of consciousness and then let it go.
The other thing too is, in that example, that person who gave the negative review could have seen you as a threat in some way, shape, or form, even if it isn't subconscious. So they could be responding to something about, just because sometimes it's like, if you're confident in your life, some people do feel a little threatened by that because it impacts like their ability to feel comfortable in their own world. If they see somebody who feels more comfortable in their own skin, it can sometimes feel threatening, you know?
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right about that. And I see that a lot. I try to, I try to meet people where they're, especially my clients is where they are. I have really good luck with that. Outside in the world, in like the art world, that sort of thing, that's where you see a little bit more competitive stuff. People feel threatened and things like that. So I've just tried really hard to like kind of create my absolute own niche. So there's really nothing to compare it to. So I won't really hold up to scrutiny because there's nothing to compare it to anyways, right? So
Right.
people don't feel threatened by what I do and I don't feel judged by others. So and if it starts to become a commonplace thing, then just change it again to where I don't have to be in that predicament of like feeling competitive against other artists or feeling like people are copying what I'm doing and I have to compete with them.
Right. And it's also, we haven't even mentioned what you do. I mean, we should mention that you are an art therapist.
Yeah.
You do upcycle fashion design. What else am I missing?
And I'm a yoga teacher.
Yes, yoga teacher. That's the other thing.
Yoga teacher. Yeah. So what I do in the arts is I use fashion shows as like programming. For example, since last time we met, I did an Indy 500 fashion show at one of the big galleries downtown. And what's the cool thing about this gallery is that it is right in the middle of a neighborhood. It's like a community center. It has several different galleries, all kinds of different mediums. And the Indy 500 puts on this porch party event in Indianapolis where people in all these neighborhoods, and the neighborhood's really diverse. They all come and decorate their porches with checkerboard stuff. And the president of the Indy 500 comes out and he gives a big kickoff and have all these things. And so we had like a 500 themed fashion show, wearable art fashion show. Everything was made from upcycled stuff or art materials. And we had a big fashion show there. And that was great because the thing was they paid me for that. This is how I make money through fashion. They paid me for programming, and the program is a fashion show. So I do the commentary, which is a mix between like comedy, describing what the outfit's made out of, and then also like pumping up the person who's wearing it. Like this is like Jody and she can do like 100 crunches because she's a Pilates teacher or something, like that sort of thing. So it's like everybody wins, but it's just like a community programming thing. And that's kind of like there's nobody else doing that right now. Like people are putting on fashion shows to sell their clothes,
Right.
but it's like I don't want to sell any of this stuff, nor would you even really want to buy it actually.
Yeah, it's about the experience.
Yeah, it's about the experience, but you get to come and watch it. I'm going to put on a show for you using
That's
fashion.
cool.
So nobody else is doing that right now, and I'm glad for that. Because now then I just have to like change my thing to something else.
Wow, that's a really cool idea. I hadn't really considered that. Yeah, because it just takes like an existing model that we all know, the fashion show, and puts it into a different place, and it allows for different like
entertainment.
creative.
Like when you think of like how exciting it is for people to look at pictures of like the Met Gala, like all of us from the plebes out here that enjoy looking at excitable fashion, people love that sort of thing. Right. So you turn it into a form of entertainment, then make it funny as well, and then also it's also like friendship building. Like the people that have participated in these fashion shows, including myself when I was a model in an art fashion show years ago, it created an opportunity for me to really make friends because of the backstage experience. We all got to work as a team, got to help each other with the lashes and the jerry rigging of the outfits and all this stuff like that, and everybody gets to make new friends, and everybody kind of gets to be like a star for like the 5 minutes on the runway.
Yeah, that's a cool idea. And it's interesting too because you'd think that a lot of people who watch regular fashion shows anyway, they're going to watch them on TV or reality show. They're not really there to buy anyway. Like if you look at like the numerical people watching it, the majority of them are there just to enjoy the experience, because how many people end up really buying the things they see on these. So it's like you're sort of just cutting out that part of it that was like didn't really matter to most of the audience anyway.
Right. The person who like is the most serious fashion person is a man named Bernie Martin, who he's a developer of a Midwest Fashion Week, which is actually like a global thing. But even though it's titled Midwest Fashion Week, he told me that the stuff you see on the runway is really never for purchase. It is what is the eye-catching thing to get people then to come to your boutique, and then they buy like a t-shirt or they buy a belt or a purse or something like that. But also I just think of the fashion shows, like the high caliber fashion shows, to where people are really trying to get their designs out there. They're really expensive, like even to buy a ticket to those shows. So these are the events I do are free, and they're paid for by community grants. And that's kind of how I tapped into that niche of getting community grant money for stuff. And then making it accessible, because that's the whole idea of a community grant, is to provide free programming to better improve neighborhoods.
Yeah, well, that's awesome. So that's so cool. And this is something
Totally.
you've just, so we last talked maybe, it was in April, I think. It was probably about
Yeah.
3 months ago.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
And this has already been something new you've worked on since then?
Yeah, this was the first Friday in May. So first Friday is a big thing in Indianapolis with the arts. They always have the first Friday celebration. So the Indy 500 president came out there, and he was pretty sharp, man. He kind of looked, he had like pageboy glasses, real tailored suit and stuff. Last name is Bowles, Boles. I can't remember the first name exactly. But he came out and did his kickoff, and then saw our show and supported us and stuff. And that was on the first Friday in May.
Cool. Excellent.
Mhm.
All right, we might as well jump into these questions because we have a bunch of them. Do you want to go first, or do you want me to go first?
Yeah, I'll go first because I want to know what is the significance of Soma and what's of 79.
Oh, okay. All right. And just to recap, we're doing, I said at the beginning that we're doing, yeah, I already said that. It's already been a long day. All right. So 79 is the year I was born.
Okay, I thought so, right? Okay.
Yep. So what happened was, when I first went to college in 1997, I got my computer, I got my AOL Instant Messenger, and I was trying to find a name that wasn't already taken. And I had what was my favorite album at the time, Siamese Dream by Smashing Pumpkins, out. And I was going through and taking the song titles and putting the year I was born at the end of it. And I tried like 5 or 6, and the first one that it took was Soma 79. So he named the song, I'd find out later, Billy Corgan named the song later, because he talks about this process of just having this stream of consciousness where one word leads to the next, and that's the song title. But I guess it goes back to the Aldous Huxley book, Brave New World, which the drug in that is called Soma. So that's where I think most people associate the word from. So it isn't from there, but it's from a lineage that comes from there. And then at a certain point, when I used it as my rap name, I didn't like the idea of having it named after a drug, because I got put on Somas when I was in college. My jaw had fallen out of its socket for reasons we won't talk about. And they put me on Somas, and it really, really fucked me up. I was just like, these are dangerous. And then, so a few years later, I was sitting around in Florida. I was working a job down at the Ritz in Florida, working like a sign-in booth in Orlando. And the guy next to me was doing a crossword puzzle. And he was like, what's a 7-letter word that means wisdom from within that starts with SOMA? And I'm like, I don't know, man. But when you find out, let me know, because that's going to be my new rap name. And it was awesome. It was Somatic. So that's what I went by for a long time, was Somatic. And which it's funny because I've looked it up before and I've never really seen that definition attached to it again. But that's
I haven't. Somatic, when I think of somatic, I think of like somatic symptom disorder, just like having to do with the body. Yes, when you have the disorder of where you think you have, it's kind of like being a hypochondriac is what they call it.
Like psychosomatic,
So psychosomatic. Yes. Psychosomatic addict insane. Who sang that song?
Psychosomatic Atticus Prodigy.
Yes, you got it right. That's right. See, that just rolled right into my second question. Naturally. No, I'm kidding. That wasn't actually my second question. But
so that was with the name Soma 7. And the reason I kept it for years is because it doesn't mean much. Like, I don't like these. I'm not really into these names where I'm trying to sound tough because of who my name is, whatever. I like it because it doesn't really mean a whole lot of anything. It just sort of is what it is, So
I like it. There's also a song by the Strokes called Soma. Have you heard that song?
Every time I look up one of my own songs, that's one of the ones that comes up. You get to know the things. You get to know the things that are almost like you, and it's like tons of things that from India comes up when I start typing in Soma. I get a lot of like emails from people in India that are looking for like the Gmail version of my email address, the Indian version of my Gmail address. So it's like, I get emails from people about someone in India has been using my email address for years, and every time they have like a problem, like their heating, I get like an email about it. I'm like,
that's hilarious.
Yeah. So, all right. So do you want me to? Should I go next, or we're gonna go?
Go ahead. Go.
Right. What is the best thing that's happened to you today?
The best thing that happened to me. Well, I taught yoga class today. I teach at 9 a.m. on Sundays, and that was good. I'm leading their like yoga teacher training program where I get to teach other people to be yoga instructors. And so somebody said they wanted to do it. They liked my class, but it was just a really good class. Sometimes I walk away from those experiences and I'm like, that was like, I wasn't really feeling it, but like everything flowed really well. The music went really well. I have this really kooky guy named Lonnie Booker III. I know he's out there. He'll probably see this. He comes to my class. He was well-behaved in class, so that was good. You know what I mean?
plus.
He did all the things and stuff, and that was the best thing so far. Oh, but then watching that documentary today, the one called The Curious Case of Natalia Grace.
Yeah.
Wild.
I'll
was
be
good.
watching that too.
I cannot wait to have a discussion about that because it is bonkers. And it's in Indiana, just right up the
100%.
street. So
It's always nice to know crazy stuff has happened right near where you live.
right, exactly. It makes
Yeah.
me makes me feel not such a big weirdo.
Yeah, there's an
All right,
unsolved mysteries episode about UFO activity not far from where I live now, and I'm like, yeah, we're the hub of it.
Yeah,
We
that was
were
just
at some
it
point.
surprised me. I've always heard of UFOs and stuff up in New Hampshire and places like that.
Yeah.
So interesting. All right. So what is your favorite rhetorical question between these three?
Okay.
How dare you? What gives you the right? And who do you think you are?
I remember "Who do you think you are" was something that in my family, my mother would always say to my dog whenever he misbehaved, and she'd be like, "Who do you think you are?" And she'd say it just like that, and I'm like, who do you think he is? Because he doesn't understand what you're saying. And so that always makes me laugh when I think of it, because she'd always go to that, and she'd always say it in that same rhythmical way, "Who do you think you?" And she's practically saying it by the end. And I'm just like, who is this for, and how is it being interpreted? But that's where my favorite.
I like how dare you, and I'm always looking for an opportunity to use it. I don't get to use it very often, but like how dare you is like my favorite one. But I just don't have enough drama in my life to be able to like use it and really mean it, you know.
Yeah.
So I guess I have 4 dogs. I could start using it with my dogs because they do crazy stuff all the time. But to really use it in like a conversation, I'm still waiting for that perfect timing to just put in a "how dare you."
You know what I don't like is when somebody calls something unacceptable. They're, "That's unacceptable."
Yes.
And it's sort of like there's this air of like, how could I accept that?
Yes,
it's like
right.
I don't like that about it. It's like even if I agree with you, for some reason I don't like it when people say that.
It's a very Karen thing to say. It's also a very like authoritative thing to say. Like that's something that my boss says to me when I fuck up some clinical like detail. They're like, "This is unacceptable. To let me know what the obstacles were to you meeting this goal." And I'd be like, that's exactly what that language is unacceptable. Yeah, I totally agree with that.
Yeah. So, all right. What do you think animals observe about humans objectively? And this is something I thought about the other day when I was probably a little high and like looking at my cat. Like, what do you think it is that like cats or like whatever animals like? What do you think they know about humans that they just learned by looking at us objectively?
I think subjectively or objectively.
Objectively, because obviously they don't have the the context.
Right. I think that animals can tell when a person is a threat more so than maybe even a human can, I think there are things that can like the dull humans' instincts. I actually even was reading some literature from the Nation of Islam. Not that I am part of that community, nor would they would ever accept me if I wanted to be. But I'm really interested in their viewpoint, and they don't believe that humans have instincts. They believe that humans only have free will. And so they said that animals only have instinct. And I was just kind of thinking about that. I'm just really interested in that point of view. It's kind of fascinating. But I think animals have the instinct to be able to pick up on danger, to pick up on like a bad vibe, if you will, that sort of thing. And then also animals can tell when you're stinky better than humans can, because they can smell, and they objectively they know, they can pick up on your scent. And I think that they can maybe even have a better ability to identify when you're in the proximity, because they can smell you before they see you.
Makes sense. Yep.
Mm-hmm. All right. Who is your favorite serial killer? I don't have to be favorite, but like who is like the most interesting serial killer to you?
Oh man, that's a good question. It's so easy to jump to Dahmer because, and I have it's not really my Dahmer story, but I know a friend of a friend had a Dahmer story where they grew up in Wisconsin, and this was somebody who, I want to speak of as vaguely as possible, went on to be an actor and was, according to People magazine, was a very sexy person at some point. Not somebody, this person isn't like super famous. I can tell you off air who it is. But like they were in a bar and a creepy person hit on them, and then that creepy person was on the news not long after, and it was Dahmer.
And it was Dahmer who did it?
The person grew up in Wisconsin, and they would have been, I believe, they probably even been underage at the time. So that memory to me, it always that whenever I think of Dahmer, that always makes me think of it as just it makes you think of just how close you sort of come to like
Right.
sometimes I think about like who's the most famous person that I've been really close to and not known. Like when you're driving by like a tour bus on like the highway and you're like, that could be
Right.
like Wayne Newton or something for all you know.
And
Or it could be
Wayne
like,
Newton. That's
I don't
great.
know.
Yeah.
So sometimes I
That's
think about that, but then I think
close.
about like
You're
what's the
close to
closest
meeting
I've
Wayne
ever been to
Newton.
extreme danger without knowing it, you know?
Right. Yeah, no, that's interesting. That's just a few degrees of separation. I'm not a fan of Dahmer. I don't like because it goes beyond like fascinating personality stuff to just kind of disgusting to me. But Ted Bundy's probably my favorite one.
Yeah.
Just because it was such a like manipulator. I've watched all the Bundy things, but I
I
started
thought
watching
Zac
the show.
Efron was really great playing Ted Bundy. He was like the perfect
Oh,
choice.
oh yes, that was so good, and that was like tastefully done because it wasn't really too gross. So the next one is what is the hottest president's wife that is in existence to you?
Hottest president's wife. Oh
Yeah,
man.
Martha Washington.
I mean, it's got to be Jackie O. I don't know that like I really, just timeless beauty. Just the outfits, everything. I don't
Right.
care, Ron DeSantis's wife. You're no Jackie O. I don't care how you try
No,
to fix yourself up.
no, she is no Jackie O. Jackie O has got to be it. Yeah, for sure. For me too. I
Yeah.
mean, in all honesty, I don't know that many presidents' wives, what they look like. But I think Michelle Obama's quite lovely too, you
She
know.
is. She is quite. I would say she's up there too as well. But
Mhm.
I guess maybe Jackie O is more my type than Michelle Obama. I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah,
I
definitely.
think, if you believe the rumors about Nancy Reagan, I
What are the rumors about Nancy Reagan? Was she hot back in the day?
um God, I'm trying to think how I can say this that it's not going to sound she was the rumors are that she had particularly good skills with an area of her body.
Are you serious? No
And
way.
yeah,
That's
and there's
hilarious.
I forget the stories behind it, but if you Google it, you won't have to search very far to find articles.
Okay. All right. I'm definitely going to do that. It's really funny how there's like lore that comes out of presidents and stuff. Have you ever heard
No.
the thing that came out about Rick Santorum?
Oh, the thing that the thing
Yeah.
that Dan Savage did, basically.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
So like how
I think about that. It's impossible for me to hear that guy's name without thinking about that, which is
yeah.
exactly what he was like trying to do. It's like, well played, Dan. Well played.
Yes, I know. That was great. Yeah, when you Google Rick Santorum and did like Urban Dictionary term comes up for Rick Santorum or whatever, like, and he tried to fight against Google to take the
I
index
know.
down or whatever, but he couldn't. So this is just
Actually, I want to give Dan Savage prop for one other thing that I think this happened. If it didn't, forgive me. But I seem to
uh-huh.
remember that right after September 11th, I was reading Savage Love, his column, and I think that he was responding to letters of people who sent their emails in that were time stamped like September 11th, like 11 in the afternoon, and he was responding to them like, how could you be thinking about this at this time? And I hope this actually happened because I don't, maybe I'm making it up, but I think his whole column after was basically shaming the people who were writing in for relationship advice as the world was burning. So
Interesting.
I
Yeah.
don't know.
What's the name of the person? You said Dan Savage?
Dan Savage, yeah, he was the
Yeah.
guy, and he wrote Savage Love. He's a famous columnist for years. He's done a lot in media. I think he was the one who popularized the Santorum thing.
I do know who Dan Savage was also a guest judge on RuPaul's Drag Race when they had to they all had to pretend to run for office. Like there was like 4 queens left, and then he went and he talked to each one of them about like political positions and like how would you campaign if you were a drag queen that was going to be president? How do you campaign? And I remember it was Sharon Needles was the one that won that thing, but it was just such a fun thing to watch them do to combine running for political race on like drag queen values is like yay
Yeah, he's a sharp guy.
yeah.
So,
All right, so is it my
I think
turn?
it's my turn to ask you.
Yes.
Which Muppet would make the best doubles tennis partner?
Doubles tennis partner. Well, I know who wouldn't. Do you know who Janice is, like with the long blonde
Oh,
hair in her
of the
eyes?
band. Yeah, I don't know if
Yeah,
anyone in the band is really. I mean,
yeah.
Animal's probably your best bet, but he's
Animal,
gonna
yes.
come on strong some points, but a liability a lot of the other time.
So who I think it would be, Janice is the coolest one to me because she's just like, yeah, man,
Yeah, I like the one that looks like Bob Dylan. The blue one in the band.
I like, I think, so, there's Beaker and Bunsen, right?
Yep.
So which one? I think Beaker, like the little orange headed one or whatever, because he's already like a partner. He's used to partnering,
Yeah, that's a
right?
good
He's
point.
used to partnering with Beaker, or with Bunsen. So Beaker would be a good partner in like anything, and he's used to like falling back. He's like, I'm the support person. So if I was on a doubles tennis team, I would want to be the star. And we would actually assume that I have more talent, so he'd be the support person.
And that's funny because I'd go the opposite way where I'd pick Miss Piggy because she always rises to the occasion and has that rage in her. And I think she's not going to accept losing. And I want her to sort of take charge. Like maybe I'll keep things going a lot of the time, but in the big moments, I want her to really slam it home.
No, that's actually a great point, because she does have that rage. She would go ham. She's got the drive to get what she wants. She doesn't take no for an answer. She's almost like Pepe Le Pew, but of pigs, because she's so like aggressive with her affection, and she could just translate that into anything she does, whether it be doubles tennis or taking over the world.
So in the comments, I want people to say whether they think myself and Miss Piggy would beat Katy and Beaker in a doubles tennis match. And I want I want to know who you think will win and why.
I think if we pitted Beaker against Miss Piggy, there'd be no doubt that Miss Piggy would win. I mean, like Beaker is a little bit he's a little bit meek, but he is consistent and he shows up and he's probably always on time. Mrs. Piggy would probably be like, I got to do my hair, my nails. She might be too high maintenance to really be a reliable partner.
I'll even go one step forward. There will be a Soma 79 prize pack to whoever has the best answer of who would win.
Yes, I want to see I want the prize pack. I want the prize pack.
I can send you some stuff. I got a bunch of stuff around. I'm actively trying to, as you can see, I have a lot of stuff, and there's a lot of stuff you don't see. So I'm trying to sort of clean out and a lot of it is like stickers that I made. It's not just like, I'm not going to just send people like, oh, these are the paper clips that I overbought. But there will be some.
That sounds like my type of prize pack, like from the people at group home. We play bingo on the weekends and stuff, and so I just like open up my junk drawer and I'm like, oh, there's like a lock here, and there's a vape with 2 puffs left and a thing of lotion. Like, here's your bingo prizes. So that's a pretty dank one.
It's funny you bring up that lock.
Oh, you got a lock there?
I think it's like the exact same one.
Yeah, it has a key and stuff, right? Okay, so I'm going to ditch my next question because I want to add a question. All right, so Soma 79 created a cereal. What would the flavor and the shape be? What would it be called? And what would the prize on the inside be?
I think people could be very disappointed by this, because for me, I'm a very healthy eater, or at least like that's what I aspire to be. Like I eat very healthy most of the time. So it would be something completely boring, because I don't like sugary cereals, and I'm not really a breakfast person anyway, because I'm allergic to eggs and I don't eat meat. So it's like, if you're like that, your options are so it would be probably like Cheerios, but without all the added sugar. Like that would be sort of like my ideal cereal. What would it be called? Soma-O's? Something like that, like really basic. Like mine would be like it would be super basic, maybe even designed like this, where it's like mostly a white box with like a few like retro stripes or something. That's like the design. I like the prize inside. I'm always a fan of the temporary tattoos. So it would probably be some sort of a temporary tattoo. But I also like the decoder rings that they used to do, where like you'd move it and it would change color. So I would say either some sort of a decoder ring, because I think those are super cool, or temporary tattoos. I also used to love, I got from the movie Congo, Taco Bell did a watch years ago that I used to wear all the time. That was like a Congo watch. Terrible movie. I just saw it recently.
Interesting.
Yeah,
that's good. So that's a little disappointing on the cereal, but still, if there's a temporary tattoo inside a box of like Soma-O's, that means like I'm healthy, but I like still like to party or whatever. But that's
sort of me too. Like that is sort of me. So
it could have 79 vitamins and minerals.
That's perfect.
Or 79 healthy ingredients for all of you health freaks out there,
I also too, I think milk on cereal grosses me out. So like it has to be, this is something, we're an anti-milk cereal.
Right. Okay.
I don't like making my food wet. I also don't like milk and coffee. I feel like it's an apology for bad coffee if you have to add something to it. I'm a black coffee person. It's like, if you like adding,
A1 steak sauce on a really good steak, like that sort of thing.
Well, it's like, think of it this way. If you were to add like milk to Pepsi, you wouldn't just call it Pepsi anymore. It would be
Right.
like, and it's like people add milk to coffee and still they have the balls to call it coffee when there's milk in it. But it would, like I said, if it was Pepsi, you wouldn't call it
Right.
Pepsi. It'd be something else. And that's
Right.
obviously has upset me.
Interesting. Okay, I see that. Yes, you said the balls. That's a how dare you moment you just
That
had
wasn't
there.
how dare you moment. If there
Yeah,
was someone
how
here doing it
dare
right
you.
now, my finger would be very waggy.
Yes,
That was
wag.
this is only half as waggy as it would get. It would
You
look
have
like
a
it was
very
going back and
you have a
forth.
very waggly finger.
I also
Lily.
have thumbs like this. That bend
That's so
back
you
really
really
far.
would get a hitchhike ride before
Right.
anybody else.
I
would.
also can't do this with both hands. Like these two fingers move together. So like I hold this down, it pops right up. Like
Oh,
my
interesting.
mother's like that with the opposite hand. So
Weird.
I know. It's the way to prove that I'm the true heir to the throne of Denmark.
Right.
So
Right.
all right.
Your turn.
What are the most practical things that could be done to help slow down the issue of addiction in this country?
Okay, well, I think being proactive and not ever going there in the first place is one thing for sure. I think by, I don't know if it looks like strengthening the family unit. I don't know if that's necessarily the answer, but like the idea, when I think of my own personal experiences, I think of being a latchkey and having this time where I was left to my own devices, was really a curious kid, kind of a troubled kid, product of divorce, and then really just could not wait to like get my hands on drugs. I just couldn't wait. To me, it seemed like so exciting and edgy and things like that. At that point, it wasn't even really like an escape. I wasn't really even struggling that bad. I just really was curious to try these things at a really young age. So I don't know if that comes from, let's say if my parents stayed married and we didn't have that latchkey issue, I just would have had more supervision. I would have had more eyes on me, would have been, excuse me, held accountable a little bit more. And then I also think for those people that are struggling with addiction, I wrote my entire thesis on overcoming addiction by participating in the arts, especially if you haven't already, by connecting people into these placemaking initiatives, which are all over Indianapolis. And they go into underserved neighborhoods where addiction is prevalent. And they set up arts programming right there. By connecting people to artistic programming, you've got the change of the people, places, and the things. And those are the triggers for addiction. Going back to the same place, going around with the same people, doing the same thing that you've always done. You can replace all of that thing simply, it doesn't have to be in there, simply by trying something to go fucking start rock climbing, go join a canoe club or something like that. Finding a new thing to do with your time where you also meet a new support system. That is a way to maintain sobriety for
It's
sure.
like replacement therapy to some degree. I mean,
it's exactly what it is. Yeah, it's replacing bad habits with good habits, because that's what they always say about bad habits is you can't just stop cold turkey. You have to replace the bad habit with something new.
And that's
good.
where I think that's especially good for people who, AA I think is a great program, but my experience, it doesn't work for everybody. But it's a similar thought process where you're like, I need to disrupt my schedule. I need to know that I'm going to be around people like this at this time and be doing something. It gives you something to get you from day to day or hour to hour, and like it's like a 10 post of your week. So
you're exactly right. And it also takes like awareness, like you have to be aware of what your triggers are too, right? You have to be aware of like, okay, every day at 5 o'clock is the time where I normally would make a martini. I need to go on a run. I need to get on the elliptical trainer, something like that, developing insight. But I do think like starting young, whether your family is a split family or you have a single mom or you've got both parents or whatever your family unit looks like, I do think that like being very mindful of what your kids are doing, or trying to have them like engaged in maybe after school program or something like that, just keeping your kids busy without being like a helicopter parent. But I feel like that's where things fall apart sometimes, when the family unit falls apart. The parents are busy, they want to give you attention, but they just can't, so they just kind of leave you to your own devices, and before you know it, you're on YouTube, you're looking at stuff, mixing with people who also their parents don't give a shit, and they're smoking weed or something like that.
Yep.
All right, my turn.
Yes.
All right, who is your favorite president in history, or could be most interesting president?
Favorite president?
All the way back to George Washington.
God, it's a good question. I gotta say Kennedy's the one that comes to mind again. You know, part of it might being like maybe is being like someone from Boston. I think that's sort of like, if you look at the time in history, it's sort of when America lost its innocence, you know, the Kennedy assassination, Vietnam and all that. And in some ways, his presidency and his place in history bridges, you know, old America with newer America. And I think it changed what people could think of as somebody in leadership, for better or for worse. You know, so I'd say
you're right about that. That's interesting because he was young. He was Roman Catholic. He was, you know, had. I think the young part is really really energizing for America when they have somebody that seems young and vibrant and has like fresh ideas and things like that. Plus, he has an interesting personal life. Plus, John F. Kennedy, when I read about him, he was in the Navy on a sinking ship and like single-handedly swam like 10 soldiers from the sinking ship to shore. Like he saved all of these people by swimming them to shore. And they all have these like heroic stories. And I think about reading these people. These are like top tier human beings we're talking about, of like what they have achieved in their life. Like I remember reading about who was the guy that did like the special investigation on Trump? Mulder, was that what was not Mulder?
Oh yeah, Robert Mueller.
Well, Robert Mueller, I was reading about the dude's history. This dude has like all these like top tier experiences of like CIA, like naval captain, like all of these things. And my husband and I are just talking about like, how is it that you get to this level of achievement that is like this top tier of like human beings and stuff? And it's fascinating to me. But my favorite president is Teddy Roosevelt.
Yeah,
Teddy
Roosevelt, a good one.
Rough Riders. I want to see roll the DMX song. You know what I mean? The Rough Riders. He was badass. He was giving a speech and he decided to just go off the rails. And I do this too. Anytime I have to give a speech, I just write a speech, put it aside, and go off the rails. He folded up the speech, put it in his pocket right here. He was shot in the middle of his speech. The thing stopped it, but he kept rolling. He was still dying and kept the speech going, and he didn't care. And then he ended up getting reelected, and he was just a badass. And he would like the Teddy Roosevelt quotes from history are the funniest in the world. It's like, let's look at like Barack Obama quotes about hope and dignity, and Teddy Roosevelt's like, I will bite you, I'll kick you in the balls. I'm like, yes, this is
respectfully yours, Teddy Roosevelt.
Yes. And then I went, my best Halloween costume was 2 years ago when I went as Teddy Roosevelt as for Halloween and as Rough Riders, and I got to MC a like costume contest as Teddy Roosevelt and use all my Teddy Roosevelt knowledge, showcase that. I created the opportunity for myself to be able to unload all that onto just unaware
manifest
it. Yeah, I created the opportunity. I was like, oh well, this now's my time to do my Teddy Roosevelt shtick. So
all right, so this one comes from something that I think I saw you say on your stories at one point, and I made note of it. What does the term prairie justice mean to you?
Oh, prairie justice, prairie justice. That means like, that is kind of like, it would be sort of like martial law or something like that. Like, so it's kind of like prairie justice means like you get up a posse and you go out with guns and you have your own brand of justice, right? Prairie justice, that's what it means.
They call that mob justice.
Mob justice, yeah, you have prairie justice is what that is. True. In Midwest, we don't have the mafia, so prairie justice is like, I'm going to get on an ATV four-wheeler with my rifle, I'm going to go down to the trailer park and I'm going to regulate, that sort of thing. But when I was thinking, I
like how your prairie involves ATVs in a trailer park.
It does.
I feel like we're getting more to the specifics of whatever you were talking about when you posted that.
Prairie, because there is literally right outside of my hometown is Prairie Ton, and that is like an S curve called Dead Man's Curve. There's all these trailer parks on there. That is where, I mean, I've seen prairie justice, like people move out to the sticks because they live in a way that they can't live inside city limits. And they want privacy, you know, they want privacy to kind of govern themselves as they see fit. There's not a lot of credentialed people out there. So what it is, I'm making it sound bad, but what it is it falls out of the realm of clinical to something very intimate because you are in somebody's home. They live there, right? So it's just more like an intimate thing. And you got to handle stuff a little bit differently because the clinical stuff can be lost on these people sometimes. But prairie justice, I got to use that at work, and they were scratching their head just like you were. They're like, what's prairie justice? And I was like, well, if you don't know what it is, then you don't need to worry about it, because prairie justice is meant to be nebulous anyways.
Just hope you never have to know.
You never have to know what prairie. Yeah, you see somebody on an ATV with a shotgun, you know you're about to have some prairie justice on you. So
Yeah. Prairie Justice kind of sounds like I'm picturing like a female WWE wrestler who like wrestles really early on in the card, and she comes out like dressed up like fully costume, like doesn't get to have her own personality. So you're Prairie Justice, and you're gonna wear the hat, and you're gonna like ride a horse, and
right.
That's gonna be it, right?
Right. No, I could totally see that. I used to do this shtick where when I would compete in these karaoke contests, because you could go and you could win $50 a night, right? And I would just turn the party out. But I would dress essentially like a prairie Mormon, like in like the prairie Mormon dress, and just not say anything to anybody the whole time at the bar and just sit quietly and act like I was really nervous, and then just get up there and break out like Naughty by Nature hip hop parade. Yeah, and people would just be like, oh, like going crazy and stuff because like they did not see that coming. And that was like part of
Commitment to the bit, yeah.
Yeah, like theatrics, yeah. So
That's awesome.
I know it.
All right, you're up.
I'm up. Okay, so if you could travel back in time to any period of history, which period of history would you travel back to?
I would say early days of hip hop is probably where I'd go. Like, Bronx in like the 80s and 70s is the first thing that comes to mind for me. I'm not like a big, like, there ain't a whole lot back there in terms of history in general. Like, I'm much more interested in what's coming forward than what's going back. Like, there isn't a whole lot I really need to see that already happened. Like
you don't need to go back to the pyramids or something like that.
No, I don't need to, like, I think what you would find, what I imagine would happen if you went back in time is you'd find how often that we actually got things wrong. And I think it would be pretty depressing about, like, if you showed up these places, like, well, there's nothing the way they described it. And I just think that humans are so bad. In this age now, we're seeing, even with all the information that we have and all the ways that we have to capture things, the written word and the audio word and video, we still get things wrong all the time. Like,
yeah, I think you're right. I think people would be sorely disappointed to go back and see things weren't as like awesome as the historians tell it,
right. And it's like, I think, like, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if we went back and found out the dinosaurs like made out of Legos or something. Like, I don't know. And it's like, to me, that actually makes it more likely that I want to go back. But I just like, I think I'd want to go back and be a part. I'd want to go back to a chance where I could be a part of something like artistic that I missed out on. So what comes to mind is hip hop, like Andy Warhol Factory is another one that comes to mind. So I think probably like in that like range of like the late 70s to 80s, New York is probably. But I also like wouldn't want to necessarily live there. I don't want to, like, I only want the good parts. I don't want the bad parts.
Right. I don't want the bad stuff. And I wonder if those people in those times, like Andy Warhol and the people that were part of the hip hop revolution, then if they knew how impactful it was going to be, like what the legacy would be, if there's any way to ever know that. It's hard to say like what your legacy will be of all of the things that you've done after you die that you're still going to be remembered. I mean, everybody knows who Andy Warhol is.
Right.
Did he know that when he passed away that it would continue on in this way?
I mean, even think about like the guy from Sublime. Like, I was talking today to my girlfriend about, there's this Sublime tribute band called Badfish has been around here forever. I'm like, I bet they've played more shows than Sublime did at this point. And it's like that dude's got no idea. I mean, he passed away right before they became famous.
Right. I love Sublime. Yeah, Sublime was like, there was like a whole vibe when I was probably like a senior in high school. Sublime was really popular. And there was a group of guys that hung out with, that kind of were like that life. They were trying to emulate Sublime's whole vibe and stuff. And I was really attracted to that because Sublime was fucking cool. It was like,
they were one of those groups everybody could agree on back then. I found that it was like them and like Tom Petty, and like there was like 3 or 4 things that if everybody in our bigger social circle could all agree on, and then there's like a lot of shit people.
Right. That's when Sublime said I really got into reggae music too, because I felt like reggae is like, to me, was like rhythm and blues and guitar and like hip hop all mixed into one, because you got like guitar and then you got like a dance rhythm and things like that. You got all this stuff, but then also African Americans were the ones that were primarily in the reggae I was listening to. So I liked that a lot. I felt like that had a lot to offer, like everybody,
Yeah. All right. Let me see. What are some of the most upcyclable items for people who are new to the concept of upcycle?
I think upcyclable items would be definitely, okay, do you ever know when you go to, like, let's say you go to a festival and there's like a big canvas that says like St. Joseph's fish fry, like 5 to 10. You just see they have these, right? They can only use them once because they have a date and a time on them, but they're made out of like this kind of plasticky type of canvas.
They're expensive. Like the signage is expensive.
The signage is expensive, but the thing is, people are happy to give those things away because they can't use them again. At least they think they can't use them again. I have a huge collection of those. Businesses are always willing to give those things away because they don't conceptualize how they're going to use them again. That is something that can be used for so many things, whether it's garments or bags or anything like that. And
even
it's
for
so
artwork, even for painters. You know, you
totally,
hang that up. You can do a big graffiti piece on something like that.
Yeah, exactly. It has the grommets in the corners to be able to hang it. That's a really good thing to do.
That's
Also,
a great
bicycle
tip.
inner tubes. Anytime you can go to a bike shop. They have a big box of the inner tubes. I guarantee any bike shop you go to, they have them, and you can just ask them, "Can I have these?" Because they're just going to throw them away. That sort of thing you can be made into all kinds of stuff. So those are two good ones for beginners. But if, let's say, you don't have access to those things and there's just things around your house, you can always make stuff out of Amazon boxes, Amazon packaging, those sorts of things. Cardboard is all over the place, and even those bubble wrap containers, the bubble, like the kind of pockets that things come in, like you open up, you have like a book in the bubble. You can use that as like a stamp to make texture on paintings, that sort of thing. You can use these things kind of as tools to create texture, and to create like a pattern, things like that. Cardboard, same thing. We did cardboard art when we went camping this past weekend, and we ended up tearing the first layer of the cardboard off, so you get that like ripple in between, and made these really cool kind of like sunset looking mountainscapes and stuff by tearing the different layers of the cardboard off. Those are some things that you could use.
It's funny you mentioned cardboard, because I recently bought some records from Bikini Kill, Bikini Kill. And like the records came in this little thing that whoever there does it wrote, "Thank you, love Beast Bikini Kill Records." And I was thinking about doing a Bikini Kill piece on this that sort of like establishes that in the middle and do like sort of a tribute to them on it, because I like to try to reuse stuff too, especially if it's like perfectly 12 by 12. It's like a really good,
Yeah, your drawings are so awesome. I like seeing drawings, and like I remember somebody did all these really awesome Beetlejuice drawings that were just inside a book. Like they just took open like a book here and just started doing drawings inside the book. I just thought that was a really neat thing to like see. And then I went to my son's art show. I'm just really impressed by the art faculty in Indianapolis to see what these kids are making, because they're making like really cool stuff. I never made anything like that. They have this big thing called Arts Alive in Indianapolis for people that are in our township. And they opened up the dictionary to like a word that was meaningful to them, and then did the drawing or the painting on top of the page, and then of the word. They did like a stylized graffiti of the word on the dictionary page, and that was really cool.
Stuff like that looks really cool when you frame it. And this is one piece of advice to give to people, that you'd be amazed at what looks like art just by putting it in a frame. And like there are things like even like a postcard, like you like the act of putting a frame around something adds something to it in a way that you kind of have to do it to kind of feel it. And I don't know if I'm really articulating that right. But like there is something about just putting something in a frame that automatically can raise something to the level of art, and then what you can do with it and stuff. Like you could do like even if you took like old ticket stubs, stuff like that, like there are ways to preserve like these things that you kind of just put, if a drawer full of ticket stubs, there's stuff you can do with that to make it something more artistic and have
absolutely. That the frame is like the thing that you said that preserves it, but it also like honors it in terms, it turns it into something that is meant to be that. I remember, so in the art therapy program at Heron, when I was in graduate school, the biggest thing I had to do was week after week, we had to do a journal prompt, and we had to respond via art. We had one piece of art that we made, continue to add, right? And the questions would be insightful, like, who are you? What does it mean to suffer? What are you struggling with? And so it would go all these places and stuff. And so I ended up making my thing. But the catch of it was, at the end, you had to then trade your piece of art with another person. That person had to take it home for a week and add to it without destroying it or taking away from it, right? So what it is a metaphor as like an art therapist. Am I able to take my client's artwork and embellish, or not embellish, but am I able to support it? And am I able to add to it without destroying it, right? So I remember the girl that I got her piece of art, she'd done like this swirling thing of all her emotions, just kind of painting. She was kind of new to art, everybody. And so for hers, what I did was I cut out a singular hole in the center I created a 3-dimensional like thing in the back of, I took a photo of her that was a silhouette of her. And so when you looked into the circle, you could see her in like a meadow. And it was just this little tiny thing, but then I put it into like a golden frame. And the professor thought that that was such a delicate, effective way to support this person, because she needed a lot of support, right? She needed this support piece. But I remember like the other people in the group, they're like, I took your art and I put it in the shower with me. I drove around downtown with it. I cut it up and wove it into a basket, and here it is. And people would be like, that was all my feelings and it's fucked now, you know, that sort of thing. So that whole, you saying the frame thing just brought that memory back of having to like honor somebody's art, add to it, and support it. And that's kind of what the frame does. It like honors and supports, you know.
It's funny too, because what you're describing kind of reminds me of this concept that I think of is how do I make space for someone else while still making space for me? Because that's sort of what that exercise is about.
Yes, that's what it is. And that's part of like working in tandem with a person on like a collaborative art piece, or, you know, that sort of thing of like, how can I honor what they've made? How can I add to it without taking away? How can I share spaces? You're exactly right.
And it gets me to actually one thing. I think one of the, and I wouldn't say it's the worst piece of advice, but one of the most oversaid pieces of advice in my life is treat people the way you'd want to be treated. When I think it's so easy to say treat people the way that they want to be treated. I think that's a big difference. And I think when you change your mindset about that, and obviously some people want to be treated in an unrealistic way, but like, you know, on a general basis, think more about how the other person wants to be treated versus how you would want to be treated, you know? Right.
No, that's brilliant, right? Because that's a great way to look at it. And I just had a conversation with a client on Friday where they're, you know, he is a person that is highly intelligent, but is thrown in with people that are cognitively delayed and feels like he's not treated. He's lumped in with them. He's treated like a child because they're treated in this way or whatever, you know, and that saying that really puts that into perspective, that no, not everybody treats somebody how they want to be treated, but also like making it known how you want to be treated. Not everybody can articulate their needs. You know, some people will accept being treated because I can be treated much more tough than this person can be treated, or I want to be treated with much more dignity and this person doesn't give a shit, you know?
Right. And it's also too, it's about you're approaching another person from a position of empathy versus the position of thinking about yourself. And I think that's one of the other good things about it too, is that you're doing more of your own work to open yourself up more to them than you are thinking about. It's almost like the difference between listening and waiting to talk to some degree.
Oh, yes. Right. You know? That's interesting. Did you think of that yourself?
Yeah, this is what I think about when I can't sleep at night, is stuff like that.
Yeah, no, I'm going to use that for sure. That's a really good way to think about it, because I'm always trying to get other people, my clients particularly, to think about other people, especially the ones that share a living space with others. Like you live with people, consider the person sitting next to you, like cover your mouth when you sneeze, just something as small as that, or something as big as like, you know, it's like, just think outside of your head for a moment. Think how would put yourself in their shoes, essentially, right?
I just think about too that experiment. I forget the name of it. The one where they show that somebody is very likely to push a button that makes somebody hurt in a different room if they can't see them, like that whole thing. And I think there's something about like one of the biggest problems we have on a very high level is that we don't treat each other like with empathy. We don't put ourselves in other shoes effectively. We don't actually make the effort to do that. In the end, most of what we think about other people is filtered through our own view of the world. And I think that's something that no matter who you are is, I don't know, worth questioning to some degree.
I wonder what the link between, like, I've seen people with, if they don't have the cognitive capacity, or their, like, I mean, their cognitive ability gets in the way with their ability to feel empathy for others. You know, because empathy could be more of a complex type of brain function, you know, of being able to experience empathy, because I don't know that it's necessarily instinctual.
But I think to
really...
some degree, like when the term wag the dog, I think sociopaths are the tail that wags the dog in our society in general. And I think that's one of the more dangerous things, where it's like it should be the whole dog is most of us that are living fairly decent lives, but the sociopaths and the strained narcissists are the tail that's trying to wag the rest of the dog. And I think that's that's just the way I think of it. So.
Right. That's interesting. Yeah, that's an interesting thing. I think that it can be learned by helping people develop insight, but if you don't have the capacity to learn, then it could be a struggle for you. But also, alternatively, you could say, even if somebody's cognitive declined, if they see something that's really sad on television, they also feel with, they experience that biological response of empathy. Maybe that's the thing. But yeah, that's an interesting concept. I'm really glad you said that.
Yeah. I don't know how we got on that. Was that my question or your question?
I don't remember. Here, let me see. I need to get back to my questions. All right, here we go. Okay, here's my questions. All right, so that was, I can't remember what we talked about. So that was a good one. Okay. What's your favorite music video of all time?
Oh, favorite music video. See, I didn't have MTV till I was like 20, like about 20 years old. So
Well,
I
what was
missed
your favorite?
God, what pops into my head? It might be Today by Smashing Pumpkins. That might be my favorite. The ice cream truck imagery. I think that probably is the one that when I think music video, probably the first thing that pops in my head. I'll go with
I'm
that.
gonna have to watch that one because I can't remember that right.
It was like Billy Corgan driving around like an ice cream truck, if I remember.
Yeah, that sounds good. I think I like the music video by Aha, Take on Me, where they break the comic strip and there's like the motorcycles and he's like pounding against the walls and he turns in and he's like a human or whatever. I like that one a lot.
That's a great, yeah.
I also like the Rex and Effects Rump Shaker video where the lady is playing a saxophone in the ocean wearing a bikini because it's like, what? Like, why? Who gave that woman a saxophone? How is she just in the waves playing a saxophone?
Pharrell helped write that song.
I do know that, but
that was one of his first ones.
I learned it through the evolution of hip hop, watching that
docuseries. Yes, it's a great doc. Yep.
They wrote lots of stuff, and they were like 19 or something when they were writing those songs.
Yeah,
super wild. Cool. Yeah, it is wild.
Yeah. If you were a touring musician, what would be on your rider? Like, what would you want backstage for you?
What would I want backstage if
like
I was
like your rider, like the things that you'd require that the venue have ready for you, like your thing of M&Ms without all the.
Is that what it's called, a rider?
Yeah, it's called a rider. Yeah,
a rider. Okay, so
I don't know why, but
I definitely would want to have Coke Zero on stock, maybe a Mr. Fog. Even though I'm cutting back, I've got nicotine patches now. I definitely would want to have a large bed. With like, I mean, if we're going like I'm a touring rock star and I can be like high maintenance with like nice sheets, nice pillows. I want it to be quiet. I want to have a TV so I can watch my murder shows, that sort of thing. Yeah. So that would be basically recreating what I have in my house all the time, so I can be just as comfortable there as I am at home.
Here's a warning: I haven't had cigarettes in almost probably 15, almost going on 20 years now. Don't fall asleep with a nicotine patch on. You will have some strange dreams.
Oh no, I do every night. I love it though. I love it. Yeah, it warned me right on the box. They're like, take this off if you start having. I don't have nightmares, but I have bizarre ass shit. Yeah. And I'm just like, every morning I wake up. The only part that sucks is nobody wants to hear another person's dream.
No, they don't.
They don't. Nobody wants to listen to my bizarre dreams. You're the only person that ever cared to ask me about my dream. I have crazy dreams. And the thing is, they are all people that I see all the time. And then you walk up to me and you're like, I had a dream about you last night. And they're like, that's fucking weird. And I'm like, okay, I need to stop talking about my crazy nicotine patch dreams because nobody wants to hear about it.
No, it's funny. From our last episode, the clip that I used for the promo was you talking about your peach mashed potato dream. So I asked, I care. I want to hear. I asked about it. So.
Yeah, fire antelope. Well, the
antelope fire mist.
And antelope fire mist. I had a dream last night, essentially, that one of my clients, he had the best response the other day in group. I said, tell me something fun about you. And he said, money, weed, and power. Like that is what he said. And everybody was like, yes, like everybody loved it. They're like, that's what I've been wanting to say this whole time, and I'm so glad you finally spoke up. It's like that's what I want to say, and I was just like, well, I don't hold back. If new guy over here can come in and say money, weed, and power is what he likes, then fucking speak up. So
what a weird order. I think you go money, power, weed.
Weed, money, power. And then he said weed and money are the same thing, and money is power or whatever is his logic. And this was a lucid moment out of many unlucid moments, right? But let me tell you something neat about this. This is a caveat. So there's something called the expressive therapies continuum, where it's a theory about matching the diagnosis with the appropriate medium, right? We don't give people with anxiety watercolor because they freak out. We give them fucking ball wire or something. This guy who is undiagnosed but clearly schizophrenic, When he is given drawing and paint, he cannot articulate his thoughts. We did molding of clay, and he was totally lucid and clear in what he was saying, the way that he was doing this. I mean, it was just really interesting. I couldn't help but think, what's the connection between clay making and schizophrenia, having this medium that is like controllable, but also has a sensory experience and stuff. It just rooted him more in reality when he was building something practical, because I just asked him to make a pot rather than delving into something abstract like a drawing. He does his doodles and things. So he's doing something practical and became more articulate.
Most people who claim they don't have a creative bone in their body haven't found their particular creative outlet. I think almost everybody, if you sort of tried enough things, you'd find something that your brain clicks with.
That's what I'm trying to do. That's what happened to me when I was a patient in art therapy. I saw the art therapist. He kept trying. He would not give up, whether it was fucking juggling fruit or making sock puppets. He tried something new every single time. And I have a couple resistant people, and they're like, I just don't like art. And they just like they do the minimal and stuff. So I keep trying to reach them, investing my own resources and stuff, because I'm bound and determined to find something that every person likes, you know. So it can be done.
So my question to yours.
Oh, I think it's my question now.
We are going slow this time.
Yes. Well, we have lots of
lots of stuff to discuss.
So let's see. Oh, okay. If you had kids, what would you name them?
Oh, I remember as a kid, I'd say that I wanted to have a son named Clayton who was going to be a jazz drummer. I have no idea where that came from. I think Clay may have come from Less Than Zero, which is like my favorite book as a kid. But in that book, I wouldn't really want my kid to be much like Clay if I'm Less Than Zero.
Clayton. What's your last name?
Johnson.
So the Clayton Johnson 5, like jazz.
The Clay Johnson's 5. So that was probably. There was never really a moment in my life where it seemed like kids were like even anywhere nearby close enough for me to even go down that path. But so that was the only time in my life. But I always said that I have a line in one of my old songs is that danger is my unborn child's middle name. Basically, my way of saying that if I had a kid, the middle name would be Danger. And so I guess it would be Clayton Danger Johnson, C.D. Johnson.
I like that. Clayton Danger, C.D. Johnson. I like that's a good one.
There was the other thing too, is my friend had a joke too, that when you were a kid, that your name was your kid's name was supposed to be the first beer you ever had. And so his kid's name would have been Schlitz Malone.
Wow.
And mine would have been Guinness Johnson, because the first beer I ever had was a Guinness.
Guinness Johnson. I like that. I wonder what my first
Guinness Johnson and Schlitz Malone sounds like a I don't know, they're some sort of a tag team. I got to figure out what they do.
Totally. I would go out with either one of those guys. Like when I wasn't married, I'd be like, this is my boyfriend Schlitz Malone. It sounds like a superstar name.
This is his boyfriend Guinness Johnson.
Yes, I love that. If I was to have a son, another son, his name would be Rudolph. We'd call him Rudy.
Very nice.
Not after Rudolph, what's his fucking nuts or whatever, but like, you know.
But after Rudy. The reindeer. Like the movie Reindeer Games, where Ben Affleck's character's name is Rudolph. Is Rudy.
Oh, is his name Rudolph? Oh, okay, that's right. I've seen that movie. It's a bizarre one. Okay.
Not a good movie. I just saw it recently.
Not a good one.
Who's the most famous person you've ever been on a plane with, if you can think of anyone? I'll let you think, because that might be a thinker. I was on a plane once. If you know who Greg Giraldo is, he's a stand-up comedian who unfortunately passed away.
He died at like Speedball.
Something like that. I was on a plane coming back from Seattle, and I kept looking like, that looks just like Greg Giraldo. Is really him. And when he goes to stand up, he's wearing a T-shirt that's like Portland Comedy Festival. I'm like, yeah, that's it. So
that's wild. No, he was funny. Yeah, he was really a funny dude. Yeah. I don't think I've ever been on a plane with anybody famous. I remember my most memorable plane ride. Well, I've had a couple. This is funny. So I was on a overlay. I was heading to Los Angeles. I was in Dallas in the overlay there. We were stuck on the plane. I was in between a kid going back to Australia, and I was in between a man who was just from like Buttlick, Arkansas, who was on his way to the Philippines to pick up his new wife because he won $5,000 on a nickel slot. And he told me all about it and stuff. And he's like, I got to go out there and live with him for 2 weeks, and my kid is going to have a new mammy, you know? And that's what he said. He said, I know it's destined to be, because I never went on the nickel slots. I hit it big on the nickel slot. I got me a new wife. I'm going to the Philippines to pick her up, be there, be back.
I need to know what happened with that.
I wish I knew. Yeah. I wish I knew. I know. And then the next time on the way back, I was next to a play-by-play hockey announcer. Could have been famous, maybe in the world of hockey. We started talking about this stuff on Craigslist called missed connections. You know what that is, right?
Yes. Yep.
Missed connection. We're talking about missed connections, right? And like, you know, the histrionic person in me thinking that people are more in love with me than they really are, always searching misconnections for people reaching out for Katy Newton because they just want more. They want more of that. I've even reached out to people and unsuccessfully they've been like, dude, no, it's not you. I'm not
I
talking
wish I
about
could.
you.
I'll think about later what that says about you. That I feel like that's like something that's a real window into you. That like.
So it's histrionic. It's a total like it's not, my personality is not disordered in that way, but I'm prone to, especially when I was younger and more or less stable, I was prone to histrionics where I think
Let me
that
say more or less stable. Oh, you were more or less stable.
less
Okay.
stable back then. I'm more stable now, less stable then. I would think that relationships were more intimate than they really are. And that's a perfect, that's one of the DSM criteria for histrionic personality disorder, also attention seeking and things like that. But I would check misconnections and I'd be like, this has got to be about like TJ from specimen management. I know he like is in love with me. And I'd call and I'd be like, hey, it's Katy, you know, I know we worked there. Like, this isn't, I'm not talking about you. I'd just be like, damn.
That's
So anyways,
fantastic.
we started talking about misconnections on the airplane and he says, well, there's, you know, I love misconnections. He said, we actually did this little thing where there was a guy that always sat in seat 1A and he always saw the lady in like 2B and he really wanted to ask her out on a date. And so he like contacted the hockey announcer and was saying like, you know, hey, I put out a misconnection for this lady because I know she always sees me. I always see her. We always make eye contact. We're friends and friendly, but you know, she's never asked me out and I've never had the balls to ask her out. And so they like did it on like the Jumbotron. They're like, misconnections, Craigslist. So here we go. We got the guy in 1A and we got the lady over here. And she's just like horrified. You know, it's like when they do the kiss me cam and the person next to you like that, kind of like that. So that was the misconnection story. That was a real memorable one. And me and that guy, the play-by-play hockey announcer, we became friends on MySpace and then ended up hanging out. And anytime we'd travel, we'd go and hang out together and stuff.
Very cool.
Yeah.
All right, I think you're up.
Is it my question? Okay. If you could change your name to any name, what would it be?
Well, my fake name is James A. Gorman. That's the name that I use for like
what?
If I that was the first name, the name of my first fake ID was James A. Gorman. And even now, like I have an email address that I use to send ideas to, that I just keep all my ideas, and the name on that is James A. Gorman. So that is the fake name that I use all the time. I think it sounds, because it's like a good fake name, you have to be really ready for it. You can't like have to fumble for it. And that's been in my head for a long time. So it sometimes comes out of my mouth like quicker than because I used to use CM Punk, who's a pro wrestler. I think I mentioned that in my post this year. That was my old fake name I'd use. So then I knew someone didn't know me when it came to dress like CM Punk. But then he became famous, and I had people calling me like, "Are you the real CM Punk?" And I'm like, "This is blown up in my face."
Right. No, James. What's the A stand for in James A. Gorman?
It changes every time, so I don't know.
Yeah.
It's
I love that. James A. Gorman.
Yeah,
Sounds
James A.
like
Gorman.
a personal injury attorney or something like that.
Yeah, it does. Yeah. But it's just a very boring name. But I think the name James. I like that name. So
yeah,
I don't like Jimmy at all, but I like James.
James is good. If I had any name, it would be Ramona McGillicuddy. I like that name a lot. Like Ramona from the Ramona Quimby books.
And McGillicuddy, like Lucy.
Who's Lucy McGillicuddy?
Yeah, Lucy's from I Love Lucy, right?
Oh, is her last name is McGillicuddy?
I think that was her maiden name, was McGillicuddy.
I like that. That's like a super strong Irish last name.
I think that was her maiden name on the show. I think that was her fictional maiden name, I think.
Okay, it's a good one. Yeah, it's.
I just did a big deep dive on Wikipedia about I Love Lucy recently, and how much Fred and Ethel hated each other.
Really interesting. I haven't seen too many I Love Lucy's, but that's a good
Great
name.
Show. Holds up.
Yeah. Okay.
So, what is your hometown name known for?
Terre Haute, Indiana it is known for where Larry Bird went to school, right?
Favorite basketball player of all time.
Talk about Larry Bird, but also that is where where the Holman family's from, and they're the ones that founded the Indy 500. That's where Rose Holman Institute of Technology which is one of the #1 engineering schools in the nation. And then Indiana State University those are two things that I would say that is famous. Also, Clabber Girl baking powder, that the Holmans own that. If you'd like to bake stuff, that's where the factory is.
All right.
So let's see. What is your favorite documentary?
Ooh, God. The first one that comes to mind, I haven't seen it in years, is Grizzly Man. That's
Oh
one.
yes.
I saw that in a very weird time in my life, and the guy's name is Timothy, and they keep saying about
Mm-hmm.
how Timothy got eaten by bears, and I remember it getting
Mm-hmm.
really in my head and being like, "What the fuck?"
Mm-hmm.
That one, the one you see the scratch behind me that I'm pointing to, that's a
Uh-huh.
documentary that really changed my life by this guy Doug Prey, and it's about scratch DJs. I
Uh-huh.
got the opportunity to actually meet him shooting footage at a DJ Qbert show at the El Rey, and he was a wicked nice guy. And that
Uh-huh.
documentary I've shown to so many people. It's really, really awesome. It's about the history
Yeah.
of scratch DJing, and it's about hip hop in general, and they have everybody in it, and it's just I still the one that's really inspired me the most though is the
Uh-huh.
documentary Comedian that Seinfeld did when he retired all of his old stand-up material after the show was over and after the
Uh-huh.
sitcom was over, and he started doing a tour, and there's a bunch, and he started like writing new material, and he made a documentary about it. But it's one of those documentaries that I, especially in like hip hop circles, every once in a while, hear a rapper drop a line from it, and I'm like, oh, you're someone else who saw that and it really made a difference. Because there's like 3
Mhm.
or 4 points in that documentary where him or someone else says something that's so poignant that for a creative person that it's really like important to hear. So I'd recommend that to almost
Mhm.
anybody. Well, I
Mhm.
will warn you though, the documentary ends with him basically talking to Bill Cosby and being like, you're the greatest ever. So that the ending doesn't age very well. But I mean, I guess you can't really take away from what Bill Cosby did from a comedy perspective. So
Right, right. Interesting. So that I like that. I really appreciate it when you can pull out like a one like poignant statement and you can use that as like a nugget of wisdom for the rest of your life to like bring out in times of, enlightenment or whatever. So I like that. That's
yeah,
interesting. There's a lot of documentaries out these days, so
I
it's good
love
to have those.
documentaries.
What was your read on Grizzly Man? You think that he should have no business being out there, those damn bears?
Oh God, no, he should not. He should not. It
No,
was a
he
miracle that
was
guy lasted 13 seconds, let alone
yeah,
13 years.
he was a flake. He's like, come here, baby. Come here,
Yeah.
baby.
And
Come
he
here.
was
Come here,
allegedly
Papa.
second to play Woody on Cheers behind that. That was a fact that always blew my mind, is that allegedly
What?
it was down to him and Woody Harrelson. And I feel like I need to research that again because they do go into it in the documentary, but I'm a huge Cheers fan. So like, and I like I like the historical stuff about
No,
stuff like that. So
that's I mean, like the Grizzly Man was kind of kooky and dumb, like Woody's character kind of
yeah,
was, but like, thank God, that didn't happen.
yeah.
Jeez, that's nuts. Well, interesting. Okay.
All right. What brand would you never wear?
Lululemon. That is a
I
expensive yoga people brand.
I'm wearing it right now.
Shut up. Are you serious? What in the world? Where'd you get those from? Did you buy them?
Yeah, these actually I got discount pretty cheap. But I remember I used to live at the largest mall in New England. We had a condo attached to it, me and my former
Uh-huh.
fiance, and she used to get me gift cards to Lululemon. It was like one of those things that would get you a gift that really, like, I think you'd look nice in this, so we don't like what you wear, so we're gonna do that. So I have a bunch of, and to their credit, and I give Abercrombie the same thing because I still have clothes of Abercrombie from high school.
Uh-huh.
The clothes hold up. They're expensive, but they do hold up. So
They do, but here's why I'd never wear them. So here I just gave this today in yoga. What I really like about yoga and what I really like about running and like calisthenics is you don't need any gear to participate. That having to have gear is an obstacle or is a barrier for people to participate
I say
sometimes.
that about rapping too.
Yeah, there you go. Like to have like a microphone or like whatever you
You don't
need,
need any of
right?
that. All you need is your voice, you know?
Oh, you need your voice, right? And so the people I teach at a little tiny homegrown yoga studio that's struggling to even stay open. Then I teach like a big corporate one, right? All the corporate one, all the ladies come in, they're wearing these super expensive outfits, they have super expensive mats. And it's like you don't have to have that stuff to participate in this. And like I'm here to like speak that gospel of like this is yoga is a time honored thing that covers all of the pillars of fitness. You don't have to have these things. You can do it alone. You can literally just walk out into the grass and do it. You don't have to go to even a place to do it. So that's why I don't ever wear that stuff. Plus, it's not really like size friendly for like curvy people. They don't have a whole lot of like bigger sizes, and the shit's turbo expensive.
Yeah. See, the reason I don't wear it as much when I actually do yoga, but the reason I like it because of all my clothing, shorts tend to take the biggest beating. So I'm more likely to want to spend a little extra money for quality when it comes to shorts because I feel like those are the clothes that I go through the fastest. It's
Right.
like there's some things I'd rather spend a little extra on and some things I'd rather cut corners on. So
True, but you could get like some LL Bean or like some
and I do
men's.
love LL Bean too.
Get
You
some,
know?
yeah, Cabela's, get some fishing shorts or something.
There you go.
My dog's
So,
crying at the door. All right.
all right.
I think it's it's my turn then,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
Okay. Do you believe? Oh no, the next one is favorite revolutionary.
Revolutionary War person?
Revolutionary that revolutionized
Oh,
anything.
person who ever revolutionized anything. I think, God, it's so tough. I'm always very fascinated by the evolution of the keyboard, like people like
Hmm.
Moog, in just the way that like I'm reading a book now about the history of Pac-Man. And just
Oh, okay.
because it's like a 350-page book, and I'm gonna try to get the author on the podcast. So hopefully, it actually happens. So
That
there's
would
two
be
of them, hopefully
awesome.
one of them. And I'm very fascinated in the time in history when we really went from like analog to digital. And this sort of goes up to with the history with the hip hop thing, where it's like hip hop was invented 50 years ago, 1973. Pac-Man, like video games, Pong first came out in 1972. So I'm fascinated by things that happened when we were really just moving into the space of manipulating these things. We understood television as this. Now we want to manipulate it and turn it into a game. We understand music as this, as a record. Now I want to manipulate it and use it into an instrument. So it's like people around that era, like DJ Cool Herc, Moog, like the guys who
Mhm.
created like the early days of Atari. That stuff fascinates the hell out of me, and that's something I'd love to. The same question about you said before. While I'm in New York checking out early days of hip hop, I'd love to come up to New England and check out in California, check out some of the early days of like Atari, and just. And
Yeah.
I'm not even a big video game guy, but that stuff fascinates the hell out of me.
Right. That's cool. That's a really good answer to think about, because technology is like one of the biggest revolutions that
Yeah.
we have seen, you know what I mean? And it's something that has happened relatively quickly if you compare to revolutions of like war or of policy or of things like that, like technological revolution um has happened fast and has unfolded in front of us, right? So that's really interesting to think about. Let me see. I
Um,
can go back to my questions.
what was your favorite of all the books that you were forced to read as a kid?
Forced to read as a kid.
Like ones that you were assigned at school that you
Yes,
couldn't get
I
out
was
of?
assigned. I was assigned books in school, so um, I think I was forced to read a bunch of Steinbeck books as a prerequisite to get to graduate the alternative school early. I had to read a bunch of Steinbeck books and write a report on them. And so I tried to like watch the movies, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Really get away with that. So I remember reading Grapes of Wrath and the end part where she nurses the homeless man with like her breast milk. That to me was like so shocking and stuff. At the end of that was one. And then the pearl, which is essentially about a pearl that lead a great pearl that this fishing village is looking for, and it leads to destruction of everybody's trying to then killing each other, robbing each other, doing all these things to amass the wealth of this giant pearl and the powers of this pearl and stuff, and ends up getting hucked back into the sea after it destroys everything. Which
Never
actually
heard of
they
that.
both end up being really great books.
Cool.
All right, so let's see, up next. Do you believe in any conspiracy theories?
See, I'm a big person that goes, well, I like to remind people that a conspiracy, you only have to have two people involved for it to be a conspiracy. So I do believe that it's like there's tons of conspiracies because that technically fall under the definition of a conspiracy theory, because it's really the bar is very low to actually get in that. Having
Right, right,
said that, I do believe that, there's stuff on aliens that isn't reported and things like that's the one where I think I can most quickly point to. I don't believe things like 9/11 were like an inside job. I don't
right.
believe stuff where it's like, okay, well, it's been 20 years. How many people, like whenever I have someone who goes into that stuff with me, I'm like, all right, think of it this way. How many people had to be involved for that to happen? Like how many
Right,
people had to know about it? And there's been no whistleblower. And it's like, I know you can point to jet fuel, temperature, yeah. But it's
right.
like also how many times has buildings actually like what are those calculations based upon? And like not
Right.
the thousands of times this happened before and stuff like that. So
Right, right. I think so. I have a friend who has deep spiraled deep into that. Around the time when COVID came around, I've got a lot of people that went into the COVID thing as conspiracy, and then went into others. And it's like, what is the benefit of believing in the conspiracy theories? To just say I was right all along? Like what is the benefit
that's
of
what I
that?
think it is. I think it's people that feel powerless, that they want an opportunity to be able to jumpstart their way to being smart. It's like they feel like if they're right, they have to jump ahead of all the people who are actually like,
Okay.
improving themselves, and then they get to be at the top of that, I think.
Yeah, and that is true. And the people that I have found that are into conspiracy theories, they're not really thriving in other places in their
Yeah.
life. They're not really like, and the people that have the time to devote to all of these things are like, no, I'm doing something with my life because I'm proving the injustice of the world to these evil sources and things like that. I do have one person though. His name's Lewis. I hope you follow him on Instagram. If you don't, then this is funny we're talking about this. He's like real paranoid about Illuminati stuff or whatever. I mean, like he's like one of my best friends. He's like the 7015. He's an Atlanta based hip hop artist or whatever. But anytime I posted a picture of like this Masonic temple coin somebody gave me, and he's like, oh hell no. He's like, no, he's like, I don't know, he just like bugged out and stuff because he really thinks the Freemasons are like the Illuminati. So anytime there's a lot of Freemasons in Indiana, anytime I get
my grandfather was a Freemason, so
yeah, I mean, like they look totally normal dudes to me, but he's super paranoid about that stuff. It's just kind of like, dude, you got too much time on your hands, bro, to start making more art.
People are so bad at keeping secrets, like really in general. It's like a lot of these conspiracies revolve around a lot of people keeping a secret, and people are so bad at keeping secrets.
They really are. Have you seen that like first airman first class that leaked the secrets about Ukraine just on his Discord to seem cool?
Yeah.
You know, that's just the thing. People, if they get information like that, they cannot keep quiet about it, and that's just the nature of it. It really, if you don't want a secret to be told, don't tell anybody because it will be told.
Yep. All right. If you had 10 extra hours a week, how would you spend them?
Snoozing, lounging around, fiddle faddling, you know, that sort of what is it, dawdling, that you know, just kind of like to goof off. But honestly, let's say if there was actually 10 extra hours that was just added to like everybody's week or whatever, there would probably be more working. You know, I'm really like dedicated to my job right now because it's fun. But also, yeah, I would spend more time chilling out, and I would hopefully I could dedicate more time to my family. You know, we're just spending a lot more time together now that, you know, graduate school is done. Some of the art projects have I put some of that stuff on the back burner. So, you know, that, but probably snoozing a lot. Like an indoor house cat, I'd be laying around in the window, eating food, loving
Get
on
some
my
Garfield
turn.
time.
Yeah, Garfield time, totally.
Yep.
All right, so let's see. Next one. So what is your least favorite place to visit?
I think Florida at this point. And it was funny. I had someone offer me like what would have likely been free tickets to the Stanley Cup finals. Like a few weeks ago, and I didn't. Not even for a second did I consider it. I'm like, no, I'm not. And it was the Panthers, and they play in Florida, so it would have been. And I was just like, nope, I'm not going to Florida. Like and not only for all like the political reasons or whatever of like also being a non-binary person, I feel like walking around with this on my hands is gonna someone will be a dick, and that's it's just like I don't want to sport with my dollars going on down there. And also, there's a funny thing about Florida. Whenever my mom goes there, she has an allergic reaction to just the air. And when I was at Disney there once, I literally got off the trolley to get on Disney, and one of my eyes just started gushing with water. And it was from all the flowers out front. By the time I got to the bathroom inside, it had stopped. So there's also something in the air down there that for people in my family it's unpredictable. So.
Really? Yeah. Okay. Fair enough. Yeah. We called Florida is the Midwesterners California is what we always call that. Cause it's like the poor man's California. So it's over here, but that's a hot destination spot. At least it used to be for people in Indiana to take their families.
We call New Hampshire, North Florida because it's
sort of like northern Florida. Yes. Cause it's kind of
Hampshire's
redneck.
A little like, yeah.
That's interesting. What was I going to say? Oh yeah. What's your least favorite place to go to like in your town?
Oh, okay. Sorry, I cut you off.
No, you could have answered it anyway, but just to go deeper, what's the least favorite place to go to? Yeah, like Walmart or something like that.
I would say I barely go anywhere. I would say I hate filling up my gas. Getting gas is the hardest thing because there's only one gas station that's within like within even a bunch of miles from us, really. That's less than like a 15-minute drive away, and it's like one of those gas stations that's like just hanging on. Like the card reader doesn't always work. It has a convenience store that's only full of like dusty like coconut snowballs from like the 80s. You're just like,
oh yeah,
this is barely making it, and I hate having to go out and get gas. So
yeah, I don't like getting gas either. I don't like going to Walmart. My least favorite place to ever have to visit is the Social Security office. I hope you never have to go there in your lifetime because it is depressing.
I bet. What's an opportunity you consider moving across the world for?
Moving across the world. I mean, I really like being around my family. So an opportunity to move across the world would be some place I could take my family where everything is provided and to have some sort of like submersive cultural experience, or maybe some sort of submersive artistic experience, something like that. But it would have to be where like my family and I are like set up for life. Like for example, like I have a cousin who her husband was a art professor at Virginia Commonwealth, and they were given an opportunity to live in Doha, like over in United Arab Emirates. And the deal is like they've lived there a really long time, and he teaches art there, like an American kind of university, but the whole family had to go. They had to be like set up, like they're set over there. They're connected with other Americans that live over there, and they have everything they need, and it's really worked out for them. And to make a move like that, it would really have to be supportive of like my family, but the opportunity would be something in the arts. And then, you know, maybe some sort of submersive art therapy experience where like it could be international, or it could be working with a popular.
You're on mute.
Sorry, it just muted for a second because somebody called me. Can you still hear me?
Yep, I can hear you now.
Okay. Yeah. So something like that. Given if the circumstances were right, I would hope it would be an art therapy type of experience, or that it would be an art experience. Fashion, maybe fashion, but not so much more so than the arts.
Right.
Okay, so let's see. What type of fashion do you like to see women wearing?
Oh, let's see, women wearing. I'm always partial to like the fashion, like the hip hop fashion from like in like dance fashion from the early 2000s, like rave fashion back then, like sort of like clothes that are baggy in some points and tight in others, like something someone might wear to a rave in the early 2000s, or wear like a hip hop show and stuff like that, like stuff that's functional for like dance, and you know, tight in the right places and loose in other places, like something that's functional but still like fashionable, I guess.
Okay,
Like
I got you.
something
Kind of
that's
like
sort
that,
of,
like baggy pants and like a tank top or something, or like a kind
yeah,
of like
something like
big
that.
earrings, or so I think of like Salt and Pepper or like TLC is
Yeah,
kind of
yeah.
what I think.
And I like a little thought involved in like matching and things like that. Like I want it to be like you didn't try too hard, but you tried a little bit. Like, you know, that like you've got something that's a nice match of form and function.
Right.
Yep.
Yep, absolutely. Okay.
Do you think the popularity that Taylor Swift is currently experiencing is on par with other superstars from previous eras, or do you think she has transcended that? And I ask because I have noticed lately, I don't know her music really at all, but I've noticed the way people talk about her, especially like in my work circles, and people taking their kids and stuff like that, that it seems like her level of penetration is probably the wrong word, but like it seems like bigger than even other bigger superstars in a way. I was sort of fascinated by it.
I don't know. You know, I'm not a fan of Taylor Swift at all. I'm not a fan. Like I just saw a clip for her new like documentary about how she was kind of whining about how she had to fit the mold of what everybody else wanted her to be, and it was just so
Welcome to this planet.
traumatic and stuff like that. I'm just like, bitch, this is not trauma. Like, you know, it's like it just was. She's very unrelatable to me. I know lots of people like her. They even have like Taylor Swift song only yoga at my yoga studio. It's like, and it's the most popular class on the schedule. Everybody wants to come in for the Taylor Swift. They all kind of
But like, is there any other artists like them? Is that to my point that it's transcended a whole new level? Because it's like, I mean, was there ever like a Madonna only yoga? I mean, maybe somewhere, but like it seems like
there. I mean, maybe in Madonna's prime, it wouldn't have been a yoga class. But
maybe Madonna's
Madonna
house.
Like the thing, yeah, Madonna's house, right? But Madonna was like the thing. You probably could have an all Madonna type of activity or something like that. But I don't know because I don't pay close enough attention to her. She definitely does is getting a lot of, seems like young people, you know, people in their 20s, early 30s like her a lot and stuff like that. But she bugs the bejesus out of me. But
here's a bonus Madonna question, actually. Can you name a Madonna single since the song Music that came out in, I think, 2020 and 2000? Can you name a single she's released in the past 20 years?
No, I don't think I can.
I couldn't either this morning because that came on the radio and I was talking to my girlfriend about it. I'm like, I can't name a single Madonna song that's come out since this.
No, I don't think I can. So let me see if I can get my phone plugged in. I thought I charged it enough, but let's see. All right, I have a plug right here. All right. Here we go. Plug her in. Got a voicemail from a mysterious number during her thing. I wonder what it is.
Most of mine are people trying to scam me on car insurance or something.
Yeah, I know. I hate that stuff. All right. So next one we have, what's your favorite board game?
I'm not a big board game person. I'm so non-competitive that I lose interest. We played Dexter Clue recently, a Clue based in the show Dexter, and I think people were frustrated with me and just how little I took it seriously. So I would say maybe
Yeah.
Trivial Pursuit, because that's the one I'm big into trivia. So that's probably the one that I sort of
Yeah.
like. Yeah, I say Trivial
That's
Pursuit.
a good, yeah. Trivial Pursuit's good. You can kind of showcase you're not feels real like a smarty pants in that
Yeah,
game.
yeah,
All you have to do is move the pie around and be like, let me just drop some knowledge on y'all real quick like
right,
that.
right.
So
So,
yes, that reminds me of the role playing game story I told you that we had to cut out of the last
yeah,
interview about how disinterested I was in that game. Somebody trying to explain game rules to me is like, I just rather like watch paint dry. It's like, please stop. I
yeah,
can't take it
or
anymore.
do something else, but we won't talk about that.
Mhm. Mhm.
If you were a pro wrestler or a boxer, what would your entrance music be?
Oh gosh, that's I really like Rough Riders by DMX, but I would take on like a whole Teddy Roosevelt vibe though. It would be like I'm gonna drop history and also hip hop on you from DMX at the same time. It would be Rough Riders like that, and then I'd have like a posse, like a crew, and we'd do Prairie Justice. That would be my like wrestling style. Would be Prairie Justice because it would be like I'm outside the realms of what the WWE is gonna allow. Like I'm gonna come out and bring Prairie Justice because that's what it's all about. Is like they're breaking rules, right, and stuff. And so it'd be kind of like a hillbilly vibe or whatever. You don't see me coming. I look like an innocent prairie person, but then here comes the prairie justice. Here comes the prairie justice, and then it's like an elbow or something like that.
Though I've said this before, I have three that I go through. It's Kick 'Em While They're Down by The Offspring.
Okay.
Never Gonna Come Back Down by BT, which probably isn't as well known, and Smallpox Champion by Fugazi. Those are my three. So
Oh, you have
I
to
think
send me those
never.
songs.
Yeah, I think Kick 'Em While They're Down by The Offspring is probably the one I'd most likely go
Okay.
with. So.
Okay. I like that.
Right.
See, you would never hear a Taylor Swift song as an entrance to a wrestling match.
Probably not. No, she
No.
wouldn't allow it, I'm sure.
Now, when that happens, that is transcendence right there. If she
There
can,
you
if
go.
she can cross over into the world of WWE, monster truck rallies, and you hear a Taylor Swift song, then fine. I concede that you are all the things
Hey,
everybody
it
thinks
worked
you
for
are.
Aretha Franklin, Liberace, Cyndi Lauper.
Liberace
Liberace
was in
was at
wrestling.
WrestleMania. He was one of the first. I think it was at the first WrestleMania
Was he?
with Muhammad Ali. I think they're both in the ring at the same
Well,
time.
he's like glamour, he has the glamour of that sort of thing, So,
Yes.
and he was, kind of like rock and roll in his own way. Taylor Swift to me is just like milk toast,
Yeah,
So,
yeah. So
okay. All right, is it my turn?
yeah.
All right. What is your favorite lunch meat?
I don't eat meat.
What is your favorite cheese?
I don't really. So I'm mostly vegan. I will say I do eat fish though, which is gonna sound very contradictory. But so I
Uh-huh.
guess tuna would be the closest thing to a lunch meat. And I never for some reason like I'm kind of particular about food. I don't like cold cuts. There's something about them that kind of grosses me out. I don't know why. So it'd be probably
Okay.
tuna and cheese. I would say when I do eat it is either Swiss or provolone.
Okay.
I think American cheese. I'm done with American cheese.
Done with the American. Is it called a pescatarian? Is that what you are?
I
If you eat
perhaps
fish?
so that always sounds like a religious thing, but
Yeah, the
yeah,
Presbyterian, right?
yeah, okay, yeah, pescatarian, yeah.
Okay. Your
Uh,
turn.
all right, what was the best bargain you've ever found?
Best bargain I ever found. Okay, there's this really cool pair, and you can see them in some of my photos on Instagram. There's this really cool pair of they look like Gene Simmons Kiss boots, mint condition, totally rhinestone. The whole thing are covered in rhinestones. They've never been worn. I found them for $8 at Goodwill, and
Wow.
somehow magically, since they're like a huge platform, they fit anywhere from like I think they're actually like a size 10, but since they're like a platform and they lace all the way up the calf, they'll fit anywhere from like a size 6 to like a size 10. So everybody's been able to wear them.
Some sisterhood of the
And
traveling shoes there.
that's exactly what it is. Yeah. And everybody loves them. Everybody offers to buy them from me and stuff. And so just given that they fit everybody, they're comfortable enough for any model to walk in, even if you got a club foot or something like that. And everybody likes them. And that's been the best bargain I've ever got. Cause surely they had to have been expensive because they're really high quality. And somebody was probably just like, it would kind of made me sad if I created the story in my head of where they came from. Somebody probably bought them, really wanted to wear them, never felt like confident enough to get their sparkle boots out, and then just sadly resigned and sent
Yeah.
them to Goodwill,
Yep.
All right. So let's see. So what is your least favorite hot social topic right now?
The least favorite. I hate the idea. I anything to do with the word woke. I'm so over. I'm so
Mhm.
over the
Mhm.
attempted, I'd say failed weaponization of the word woke by people who can't even define it. Like,
Mhm.
social Marxism isn't really a thing, Ron DeSantis. Like, it's like I saw an article today that it's like saying, oh, Flaberinsky is, that just means when you have a whole lot of Polar Eskimo. And it's like that's essentially what it means to call, like, woke social dark or Marxism. It's just, I hate that shit.
Right.
It's like shit that you use to distract people from actually talking about real problems, anything like that. And I really, uh I hate to say, as a non-binary person myself, but like this shit, there was something yesterday about how there was a 9-year-old girl competing at like a shot put thing in British Columbia, and she had, like, shorter hair, and some like 50-year-old guy came out of the stands, was demanding like proof that she was, like not a boy. And they go on
What?
like a, and
Yeah.
it's like it's a
Right.
9-year-old throwing and it's like, and
Mhm.
like it's just like, this is where we're at now. And it's like, so that
Right.
person got out of bed that day thinking they're going to be some sort of a hero by doing this, and it's like shit like that is just, and the girl ended up crying, and it's like, oh good, we can all pat ourselves in the back that we've made this 9-year-old girl cry, because we've told everybody she looks too much like a boy, and we
Jesus
put her on
Christ.
this shit. Like that drives me fucking bananas. It makes me tremendously angry, actually. So
Mhm. Yeah. All right. That's a good question. All right.
um what is the best way to deal with someone who has blacked out? This is for
Blacked out.
some practical advice that we've all been around people who are blackout drunk, and there's, I think, and oftentimes we feel like we have a responsibility, though they're also, that they're the safety, but also they're not making it the easiest for you. So what do you say? Do you have any advice on the best way to deal with someone who's blackout drunk?
I say do not hang out with people that are at risk of getting that drunk. Would be my
That's
for me
actually
my
great advice.
you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like why am I around I am in my 40s. Why would I ever be around somebody that would get that drunk? To me, there's people, that I was in the earshot of somebody giving me some, actually I wasn't even earshot. It was direct feedback of, why would you bring this person around me? They see a therapist and they're taking medication, and if they had a psychotic break, it could be a problem for me. And it's like, they're in
That's
treatment,
most of us.
they're taking meds, and they're addressing their issues, where compared to somebody who's out here getting fucking drunk every day, smoking big blunts every day, driving around the city,
Right.
it's like, what's the bigger threat here
That's an
to
excellent point. Yeah.
and to so um so that sort of thing. So yeah, don't be around them in the first place. And if you are, fucking call 911 or something like that, because that is just so destructive to me.
I
It
had
really.
someone in my life who, I'm gonna try to talk around this. There was someone that was very close to me in my life who would almost never drink, but probably once every 18 months they drank, and they didn't know how. So they
Uh-huh.
always ended up getting blackout drunk. And it was like this, it was a very strange thing, because when you say blackout drunk, you think of somebody who does it on a regular basis. But this was the
Mhm.
rare thing where it's like, oh, it took this person 18 months to forget about how miserable that was. And almost like clockwork, it happened again, then it didn't happen.
Right.
It was like, you were almost just like, well, how, it's like, I never know how to deal with it, because I'm just like, obviously I don't like it, but I'm just like, it's like,
Mhm.
well, we'll talk about this in another 17 months and 29 days.
Right. Were they like at a bar, or were they just like sitting around the house drinking?
It was like it was always at some situation where, like, it was an odd situation where it happened to be people were drinking, and that was
Mhm.
different from the interactions this person usually would have. Just talk,
Right.
it was just, I always found it like very, it was very odd. But
If I'd ever had a friend that came to me and said, I've been sober 18 months, I want to do my weird annual thing where I get hammered, I'd be like, all right, you can like go sit in my dog room that has like a playpen, and you can go get drunk in there, and like I'll make sure you don't die or
but
something.
I would
And then
say
you'll
this,
wake up tomorrow
this
and
is
never have
someone
trouble.
who isn't just, they're not sober, they don't never had an alcohol problem.
Mhm.
They just don't know how to drink because they never drank.
Yeah.
It's bizarre.
Yeah. I'd have more sympathy for that sort of person, of like, somebody who's not like on a full tilt destruction. They're just like, I don't really know what I'm doing here.
Right.
Bottoms up, guys.
Right.
You know.
So all right, you're up.
All right. So question list. Where are we at? We just did favorite cheese. Least, no, we did least favorite hot social topic. Okay, what is your favorite quote or scene from a movie?
Quote or
Scene.
scene from a movie.
Uh-huh.
Um, I would say I always go back to stuff like Clerks and Kids, it would probably be something like that. Kids is too sad because I think that's a movie that depressed me as I go back.
Very bleak, yeah.
Right. But I've always liked, and I can't really nail it down to a particular probably quote, but even like those, like in Clerks, where like you have these things. I always liked when you have these moments in literature where you're really taken down in the dirt of everyday life, and then they're able to spin something kind of genius, something very like poignant out of that. Like even in Clerks, when Silent Bob says, basically about how you've got a girlfriend that brings you lasagna for lunch every day. Most women just cheat on you. And it's just like, that was essentially, it's an eye-opening, thing for Dante to hear in that moment. And it's like, I've always liked stuff like that, where like you've been brought down to this very like, base day-to-day level, but you find some way to spin poignancy out of it. Because I'm one of those people who like, I'm still thinking about, this is sort of like the quote unquote empath in me. It was a word I think I could a little overused, but I'm still thinking about when I was in my office a few weeks ago for work, and I haven't been there in a long time. There was a fly that was in the bathroom in the office, and I was like, it kept banging to the mirror. I'm like, this thing's never going to get out. And it's like it's like the fly lives a very short life, and that fly's entire life was spent in that bathroom pretty much. And that still bothers me to this day. So it's like, I'm one of those people who like, in the most mundane, I'm always looking for something that's the most whatever, and then to see that sort of portrayed in a movie, I respond to,
Interesting. That, I wear, you can see this, I wear a fly pendant around my neck. It's a fly with a diamond on top of it, because the fly is persistent, right? Yes. Even if it's just banging into the glass over and over again, it doesn't have the awareness to know that. But flies are persistent, they're eternal, they're misunderstood, and they represent change, that sort of thing, except for
and I hate killing bugs. Like, sometimes I have some little ants in my house. I really have no other way of getting rid of them, unfortunately, but like it really bothers me to kill an insect.
My husband's not a bug killer either. I don't really like to squish things myself. But like when I went camping last weekend, there was a black widow spider in my camp buddy's tent. Black, like for real black, like a for real one.
Yeah. Kill or be killed is a whole different ballgame for me.
To a mason jar, and then she got in the car and drove it all the way down to the toilets and released it out there. And that was really like clutch for you to do that, but it's like still out there somewhere. It's like you could have just flushed it, and because they will like, it's like neurotoxic venom, but that was it was a spider story. I know it. All right, so my favorite movie scene is got to be from There Will Be Blood, when Daniel Plainview talks about drinking your milkshake in the end. It's I drink your milkshake, that sort of thing. I'm mesmerized by his acting in that movie. I just love it so much. I like film it with my phone and then post on Instagram to think somebody else is going to be like, I love that. Nobody loves it as much as I do, though, I don't think. But I just love that.
It's funny that we pick things that are the polar. You pick something that's like pristine, like Academy Award cinema, and I picked something that was recorded in a convenience shop for like 30 grand. It's just like the two polar ends, but it shows you how much there is. Like, I'm somebody who like I was interviewed a film director friend of mine who's working on some films now with like some kind of big name stars and stuff, and he was always a Spielberg guy in film school, and I was the Clerks guy, and nothing has changed. I still like the thing that's really down in your hands that you can manipulate,
Yeah, I mean that in Clerks looks like something I would have like lived in. Like Kids looks like something I would have like lived in. Like these are like kids I would have like went to high school with, doing things high school kids would have done. It's very, very relatable on that level, So I could definitely see why you could relate to that, and really that resonates with you. I mean, it resonated with me too. Kids was a bleak movie. Have you seen Gummo?
Gummo's one that I've always avoided. I saw clips of it recently because I watched a documentary on Harmony. I alwauld say his name.
Harmony Korine.
There you go.
Yeah.
And once again, when I saw some of the footage of Gummo, like, so I watched the movie the other day. I watched the movie Milk Money, which was a movie with Ed Harris and Melanie Griffith from like the early 90s. And it was a very weird movie about a kid who hires Melanie Griffith as a prostitute to show her what it's like when he's naked, blah, blah, blah. I tried to look up with the dad. But there was a scene in that movie where they're eating food in a way that when I was trying to eat a bagel the next day, I had to stop eating it because I was so grossed out by it. Like, that's how like. And like Gummo has one of like, I have this weird thing with food where I kind of have sometimes, like, I've had sort of eating disorders off and on in my life, but I
Mhm.
have a thing where if something grosses me out that's like food related, I get to go into the state where I eat only very basic foods for like 2 weeks. It's like I'll only eat like pretzels and it's like, so I have sort of these food related issues. And there was something about a kid eating like spaghetti in the bathtub that felt
Oh
like it
yes,
was
the
giving me.
dirty bathtub too. Dirty, yes.
Right. That was giving me a vibe that
Yep.
I know was going to stick with me in a weird,
Mhm.
like maybe neurodivergent way was going to impact my ability to actually eat, and then that impacts my mental thing. It's like,
Yes, that and there are other things within that movie that would affect your ability to do other things in life. You know, it is fucked up, and
right.
it's like kind of like non sequitur, like vignette style of storytelling or whatever. It's kind of strange, but I mean, it just reminds me a lot because it was shot in Xenia, Ohio, and that is not far
Yes.
from where my hometown is. That's what Terre Haute, Indiana looks like. Is what that town is. That's kind of what the poor neighborhood of just kind of that I spent a lot of time in. Kids in that show look like kids that I knew, you know, that sort of thing. So uh it reminded me of like some of like darker times of hanging out in like trap houses is what you'd call them now or whatever, but just kind of like, you know, poor kids running the
Yeah.
street and stuff like that is just messed up.
Yeah.
But I saw Harmony Korine, the reason why he was banned from ever coming back to the David Letterman show, he was under the influence and stuff, but
I
he
remember.
actually they caught him backstage robbing somebody's purse. It was like one of the whoever the other guest was, whether it was,
Yeah.
you know, whatever whoever the other guest was, he was stealing out of the other guest purse, and so he's asked never to come back after that.
Yeah, that's a rough one.
Yeah.
What band are you a fan of that people wouldn't expect of you?
What's that?
What band or musical act are you a fan of that people wouldn't expect? For me, it's the
Oh,
Carpenters. That
wouldn't
always
expect.
surprises people. I'm a big
Oh,
Carpenters
I
fan.
really like Hank Williams Sr. a lot, like the
Oh,
senior of the Williams. I
yeah.
know all of the lyrics to his songs on almost every album. I mean, they're pretty simple lyrics, pretty simple, you know, like notes and things like that. But I really like Hank Williams Sr. When my sister, so I'll tell you another thing that's in Terre Haute, Sony is. So when they used to
Oh,
have like 12 CDs for a penny, I don't know if you remember
yes.
that deal.
Oh,
My sister,
I used to scam
yeah.
that stuff. So I had all these fake aliases and stuff.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
Yeah. Use the top. What was the name of your alias? Your
Probably
Gordon.
James A. Gorman. That was before I had a fake ID. I was like in seventh grade
Yeah.
then. So
So 12 CDs for a penny. So my sister worked at Columbia House because she could speak Spanish in high school, of course. And she worked in like the Spanish customer service, but she brought the loads of CDs home. And so I was into Hank Williams Sr. back then. She brought me all these Hank Williams Sr. CDs, and you can open up and read all the lyrics and sing
yeah,
along to the songs and stuff. So I like Hank Williams Sr. a lot.
yeah.
All right. So let's see where I'm at right
We're at
here.
we're about the halfway point. This is question 20 for both of us. I might
Okay. Oh,
ask
yeah.
for a quick
All right.
bathroom break after this.
Okay, if you could be adopted by a famous family as a child, what famous family would you be adopted by?
Oh man. You know what? I this is gonna sound so corny, but probably like Eminem. Like, especially
Oh,
when I
okay.
see like, post sobriety, because there's a few things I've always thought was cool about him. You never really see his personal life really out there in the press.
Mm-hmm.
And he has like what seems like a really nice house in Michigan that he sort of just lives there. He has an awesome recording studio in his basement. I assume
Mm-hmm.
most people come to him to work on stuff. And he's raised his 3 girls into, successful adults.
Mm-hmm.
And he's able to do it privately, but still be able to have, like, the reason I bought the house that I have is because I can have people come to work on music stuff here because I have a nice setup where we can record here, we can work on stuff here. It's like, that is my like heaven. So for
Uh-huh.
him, I think he's sort of one of those people who probably doesn't love leaving the house very much, and he loves just having the house where he can do everything in. So I feel like I'd really thrive, like, to get up every day and like go down in the basement and just like fuck around in the studio with someone like him, and the people that would come over to work with him, to me would be
Uh-huh.
an artistic, like, whatever.
That's fascinating. What a good answer.
And
Yeah.
also someone who's committed to his health too, because he's somebody who's been sober for, a
Yeah.
long. My dad's been sober about 13 years. It always reminds me that he has like that Eminem's been sober the same amount of time as him. So there's a little bit
Mm-hmm.
of stuff there too. And it's like, I think
That's a
he
good
is
answer.
the way he chooses to live his life now, to me, is something in line with what I want to do.
That's exemplary. Yeah, maybe you could write him and ask him if he can adopt you, if he's
Yeah,
willing to take on
I know.
another foster kid. He has a soft spot for foster kids,
Yeah.
because he was one. So, all right,
Yep.
do you need to take a break for a second?
Let's just do the next. I'll ask you my question, then we will, because then it'll be
Okay.
right at the middle. But
Okay.
when you see someone wearing a fanny pack, what message does that convey to you?
Well, it's fine. Look, I have just adopted it as a person who is a long time purse carrier, carried a purse, not only with my makeup, but with like my cell phone and my wallet. I carried a purse all through my 20s, maybe even early 30s. I carried a purse. Now I roll with nothing but a wallet. I carry a small business card holder wallet. I've looked at the fanny pack as I've seen them presented to me as a utilitarian type of thing. Okay, that's how I'm looking at it now. Like, you better be carrying something in that fanny pack. Other than that, fanny pack, fine. It's fun. They're just being fun and kooky. Like, look at me. I've got a fanny pack. I'm bringing back this dorky trend or whatever. But I really don't have anything against fanny packs either way. If you are using them for utilitarian reasons or to be ironic, or because you genuinely think that they are hip and cool or whatever. I'm neutral on that, but I could see how they could be utilitarian, because a purse is a bitch. Having something around your waist to keep things in can actually be quite useful.
Okay, agree to disagree. But the
All
fanny
right.
pack thing, the reason I brought it up was because the night I was playing Dexter Clue with my friends. One of them was telling me how two of them had a bet with each other a while ago where the loser had to wear a fanny pack for a month, and the guy lost. And he did it for a month or whatever, and then he kept doing it only to just sort of like, kind of like almost like reverse it, like, oh well, now you have to be seen with me on the fanny or something like that. And then they were out playing pool one night, and someone stole it. And I was like, right there with, was it the fashion police? I was like so proud of myself when I quipped back at that.
That's hilarious. Go ahead.
So that was basically the story, is that essentially, like, this person, like, there was a fanny pack that he lost the bet, then just tried to turn it into a win by pushing it, and then got all the stuff stolen. So
that's a good fashion story though. Like, I had this thought the other day, and this is a while ago, but I remember being at my studio and not having any underwear and not having anything to wear. Like, my outfit got ruined by like epoxy or something like that. And so I just essentially had to piece together something and wear out this ridiculous looking thing because I had a place to be. And it made me think of that scene in Pulp Fiction where they shoot the guy, and then both Jules and Vince are wearing these like shirts.
Like Marvin.
Yeah, they're wearing the Santa Cruz Banana Slug t-shirt, and like,
I made a parody of that shirt.
Yeah, so there you go. So then it gave me insight of like, don't judge people when they're wearing something fucked up, because they might be forced to wear that. This is literally all they have. Like, I was forced to wear this crazy looking thing out because I just didn't have the things. Like, the fanny pack guy had to wear the fanny pack, and like Vince and Jules had to wear the gym clothes because their stuff was covered in blood. You never know why people are wearing this, so we just don't even judge.
That's an excellent point. Yeah.
I
typically, to that point, like when I'm talking about judging, I'm usually talking about someone that I already know. Like, I don't like, I do believe in public. You don't know what battles people are fighting and stuff like that.
Sure, yeah, they may not have anything, or alternatively, somebody's wearing something absurd and they're having the time of their life. Even the bigger time not to judge,
Yeah.
Like, I have a client that comes into group that is always really inappropriately dressed, but she is so jubilant about how she looks and how good she feels about herself these days and things like that, that like, some people are like, aren't you going to redirect her? And I was like, I don't think so. I don't think I'm going to redirect her, because she seems so happy with what she's got on and stuff. Like, I don't know.
I have this conflicting thing in me where at once believe everybody should just be themselves and, like, whatever, and just do whatever they feel comfortable. But I also find, like, sort of the joy of roasting to some degree, and I enjoy it as much to myself. But I feel like putting a picture up and having somebody have people crack jokes at it and stuff, to me is like, I like that act of doing that. And I think there's something like valuable to that laughter, but I also don't take it personally. I hope others don't either, but it's hard to have a victimless joke to some degree, I guess.
No, yeah, I had somebody once, the pretty paranoid person said once to me, like, behind all joking, there's some seriousness or something like that. But I love a roast, clowning on people. I love watching roasts. They're so funny.
Yeah. I like people who care enough to do it to me too. I can take it,
Yeah, true. But you got to think about, like, if you're teaching, let's say this, if you're teaching a life skill to somebody, should you step in and tell them what is appropriate dress for an occasion and for like weather? Like, I wouldn't let a guy go out in flip-flops when it's January in Indiana. Would I let a girl wear a bare midriff and cleavage shirt to a professional thing? Like, yeah, but then it's like, I don't even really care to step in. So
I also don't really believe in punching down either. I think punching down is sort of cheap. I think that's something.
What's punching down? Just like
punching down is essentially when, like, say like I'm a middly success. Say like I'm like we're doing like a roast or something, and I'm like maybe like not the most successful person there, not the least, but in the middle. And I spend all my time ragging on like the people that are like below me, and then like
Oh,
none. So essentially, like instead of like it's like making crack shots at people that are essentially at a lower station than me, rather than punching up, which is
okay.
like it's less good natured if you're sort of like ripping into somebody who are like, oh well, you can't do this and I can do, you know what I'm saying? Like
Yeah,
it's
no, that makes sense for sure. No punch,
picking a
no down
fair
punching.
fight. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So
All
like
right. So
making sure that the blow you're throwing is gonna land right, I guess. So
yeah, don't pick on the like
yeah.
I don't know. But somebody used a term the other day of like it's like being the prettiest waitress at Denny's or whatever. Like when you're the
I say
person.
I say valedictorian of summer school.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
All right, so let's see. So we already did who would adopt you. That was a great answer about Eminem.
yeah.
What is your favorite Olympic sport?
I think it's gonna be breakdancing because that's coming to the
Is it an Olympic
Olympics.
sport now?
That's gonna be the next, I think, Summer Olympics are including breakdancing. So I'm looking forward to it being that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm looking to the future and just saying that it's
Okay.
gotta be it's
Okay.
gonna be
That
breakdancing.
I didn't even know that. That would be my new one. I went to a birthday party 3 weekends ago. I posted some pictures about this on Instagram. My friend Sean's 40th birthday. It was also on the show American Ninja Warrior. He was also
Love
on a
that
show on
show.
Discovery called The Wheel, where it's the wheel represents all of the lunar cycles. So because they drop you off in like the tundra, the jungle, the desert. Yeah, it was on
Hard
Discovery called
pass.
The Wheel. Yeah, so he did that show.
Wow.
And he ended up having to go and they just see if you can survive because he ate like a poisonous mushroom and was like going to die, so he was off the show. But he did American Ninja Warrior because he can do flips and tricks, and so naturally that translates into breakdancing. So his 40th birthday party was at a breakdancing studio in
That's
the
awesome.
north part of Indianapolis. Yeah, and so they also teach graffiti art, and then in
Oh
the
wow.
bathroom, yeah, in the bathroom there were all of these pictures from New York City. It was like a diagram of all the different moves that they do and stuff like that. I'll send you a picture of it actually
That's
because
so
it was a really
cool.
cool concept for a birthday party. And they had a dance contest, and then the people that owned the breakdancing studio kind of helped the new people learn some moves and stuff. So it was a very successful party. It was great.
That's
It was a
really
good one.
cool.
Yep.
All right. Isn't it kind of creepy that we just decided to keep all of our dead people in one part of town and just sort of leave them there?
Yeah, that is weird, but I mean, I guess like to have a designated zone for them, as so it's like you're not going on like some sort of fun dig or you're building a fence and all of a sudden you hit grandma,
Yeah.
to kind of designate an area is necessary. But I do know like in Switzerland, since it's a smaller place, that they bury the people vertical instead of long ways.
Yeah.
And then the people would in like New Orleans where they're below sea level, they're like in the caskets above ground and
Well,
stuff.
I always say I was born a cremation man and I will die a cremation man.
Right? I don't know about that. That's what everybody in my family and my friends say. That's what they were like, sprinkle my ashes on this. I don't really like the idea of being burned. But I like the idea. I don't like the idea of being embalmed either, but I like the idea of like being totally like glammed out and then people like crying and like beating their fist on the casket saying, why did she have to go? She looks so beautiful now. All these things like that, having that sort of drama at my funeral. And I feel like my body and my face has to be there. Because if I'm just reduced down to a little box, it's just going to be like,
Yeah. I'm an anti-open casket person. That's something to me that it's one of those things that I think that just is very accepted in society that I think is stranger than people I think about it as. I maybe it's just me, but I find it to be something that's unsettlingly strange when people act normal. I don't know. I'm just thinking. I don't know.
It's weird. I mean, if you think about what it does to embalm somebody, they like cut you open and like
Right.
fill you with juices and stuff. The whole thing is strange. But when I was young, it became normalized to me as a very young person because I had a lot of great grandparents that were still living. So they were all open casket, all the whole full makeup looking waxy and stuff. And it just kind of was like a normal thing to me because that's how I always saw it done. But like my grandma passed away last summer and they just had a closed casket. Like she was buried next to my grandpa, but it wasn't open because they felt like it didn't really look like her. And maybe that could be one way to do it for those folks who don't want to be charred and spread into
Charmy.
the
Charmy.
charmy.
Yeah.
Charmy.
Yeah, charmy. All right, your question.
Okay, so what is your weirdest Olympic sport?
Weirdest Olympic sport.
Uh-huh.
Man, Fencing is something that really intrigues me. So I don't know whether I
Oh, I'd
think
love
that's
to learn the
that's
fence. I love that.
weirdest. And that's something that there's a fencing place in my town. I think I might actually want to do.
Uh-huh.
I think it's pretty bizarre that like the bobsled that sledding has essentially and that's to me one of the best ones, but I think it is kind of weird to what degree it and I'm sure there's ways I'm wrong about this, but what qualifies as an athlete. And I know that all these people, especially the level of competition, they have to be athletic to do it. But
Uh-huh.
the sled is, I'm sure someone will explain to me why I'm wrong, but it's
Uh-huh.
like it doesn't feel like an athletic competition on the surface, you
No,
know.
anybody can sit and ride, you know what I
Right.
mean? Like
Though I'm
that's what,
sure it is. It doesn't
right,
feel like one at the surface level.
right. I think all the winter, not all of them, but winter sports are quite strange. I mean, if you have, I guess you consider their origins is probably pretty strange, but I think curling is strange, but
It is.
especially the guys that have the little brooms, like be like, that's your Olympic goals. Like I was the broom guy on the left in the curling event
I
or what, you know,
know.
like I did the broom thing or whatever.
You
It's
know what
kind
it's
of
sort of like a gold medal when I was when I played basketball in high school. I got cut from the basketball team in high school. They let me be scorekeeper for a year. Me and my friend. And at the end of the year, they gave us like the letters, like the letter, like the H from
uh-huh.
Hopkinton for that. And it's like to me, a curling gold medal feels about as much as that like varsity letter does for my scorekeeping, I guess.
Yeah, yes,
Like
right,
left room
exactly,
guys,
yeah.
gold medal is worth as much as my scorekeeping varsity letter, I guess.
Right. Yes.
No, no offense.
That's a good way to put it. Oh, have you ever seen? So there's a document, a series of documentaries on Netflix. It's called like it's kind of about like it's called like unsung heroes, or no, it's called the Greatest Losers or something. It's about all the people that were in sports that
Yeah.
were losers. Have you seen that
That's
before?
been on my list and I haven't watched it yet, but
You
that's
love it.
been I've been yeah,
It's right around.
there's a bunch of different episodes, right? And it follows like yeah. I have to watch that, yeah.
Like the one, if there was one who was, she was an African American gymnast and figure skater, and she never was treated fairly, partly because figure skating is a really snob sport, and so it's kind of like Tanya Harding type of deal. So in the end, they like banned her from doing backflips and doing this stuff. In the end, she knew she wasn't going to win anyway, so she just went in there and did all these backflips and like toe touches and all this insane shit at the Winter Olympics and stuff. And the
Oh, I
whole
gotta
thing
watch that. That's cool.
oh, it's so good. These inspiring stories of people that were losers, but like they really win in the end in some sort of like moral realm or whatever. So
As much as
it's
I don't like watching sports, I love sports documentaries. Like a good
oh
sports
yeah.
documentary, because it's like you have to like sports. The problem with me is you got to wait so long for something really interesting to happen. But a sports documentary is like, oh no, we found something interesting, and we're going to show you every angle of it. Like
Exactly.
you know,
Exactly. I love the 30 for 30
me too.
ESPN. I
There's
watch those
one
a
I got
lot.
to watch part two of American Gladiators. I watched part one and I was loving
Oh,
it. And part two's now on.
American Gladiators. I didn't even know that there was one out there. I'm gonna
Yeah,
have to watch
it's a
that.
two-part one, and it's like probably 4 hours total or 3 hours total.
That's
Like this
American Enjoyer
podcast
is
is
like
going to
the
be.
modern day American Gladiator.
Yep. So
That's amazing. So I've watched one about Christian Leitner. I don't know if you know who that is.
he played for Duke. Yeah,
Yeah, did
I
you
watched
play
that
for
one too.
Duke? And then I've watched the one about Tommy Morrison about 20 times, the boxer that had
Yep.
HIV that claims that he didn't. Tanya
Yeah.
Harding watched that one for
Yep.
sure.
The Ric Flair one's pretty heartbreaking too.
Ric Flair one, yeah, it is hard. That one's heartbreaking. That's a good one. And then of course, my favorite one, the best one out of all of them, is Reggie Miller versus the Knicks.
Yes.
It is so good because Reggie Miller played for the Pacers in Indianapolis,
Yep.
and it's so funny when they like juxtaposition the two cutaways of the movie of the documentary. Right, here's the New York Knicks, and it's like this hardcore like metal guitar riffs and stuff, and they're just like it's just like this like pounding energy, and it's like just dun-dun, and then they cut to the Pacers, and it's like like this little like country jam and stuff, and the guy's like
it's like a
wearing
barbershop
brown
quartet,
coat. Yeah, the barbershop quartet here in Indiana. Meanwhile, and they're like just there we play by the fundamentals of basketball, and it's just like seeing those two things juxtaposition. And in the end, Reggie Miller beats the Knicks. They didn't win the championship.
No one loses like the Knicks.
Right. Yes. It's so good. And I love Reggie Miller. He's all over the place.
He is pretty great.
Yeah.
Yeah. Then there's a lot of good ones. There's one too, where I think Ice Cube did it about the Raiders. That one's also worth checking out.
Oh yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Right. So what would your roller derby name be?
Maybe Ramona McGillicuddy, my name I always wanted it to be, if I could change it, because one that kind of sounds like a badass. Ramona Quimby was a little girl who was always kind of the Urkel of that day of like, did
Yeah.
I do that? You know, that sort of thing.
Reminds
She's
me of the
always doing
Ramones
stuff.
too, one of my favorite bands of all time.
It's like the Ramones, and the McGillicuddy sounds like a, you know, really hardcore Irish girl name.
Yeah. All right, your question.
All right. So who's your favorite drag queen? Do you know it of any?
I don't know that I really know of enough that I can name, and I'm really bad with names in general. It's yeah, I unfortunately, I mean, RuPaul is probably the only one I could
There's
really
so
name.
many though. If you ever get into it and start watching like just reels, like if you ever wanted to watch that stuff and see how funny it is and how talented they are, watch the Snatch Game from RuPaul's Drag Race. That's when they have to do celebrity impersonation, and it is fucking hilarious. Like that's when they really have to showcase their comedic timing and their drag artistry skills to be able to impersonate. But it is just brilliant. It is.
Let me ask you this, actually, so I can have a better understanding. So obviously drag at the core of it is somebody, you know, wearing clothes of like, you know, that's of a different gender from theirs. And maybe you could even say that wasn't accurate, but that's sort of what else goes into the persona. Like what else would you expect to be if you were to judge how well somebody's doing drag, besides how they're pulling something off physically, what else goes along with that?
Well,
Like, what else is part of the package?
I can tell you what it is, what the winner of the competition. That's why I've always said that RuPaul's Drag Race is like Project Runway. It's like The Last Comic Standing. It is like also like some sort of like reality show type, you know, like where you have to like get along or something, you know, that sort of thing. So, and then you have to have all of these skills. You have to be hilarious, like the comedic timing has to be good. You have to have a fashion sense. You have to be able to make your own outfits. You have to be able to pick up on like the subtlety of like comedy, combining it with fashion. So the best way I could describe it is like it has to be like Project Runway, has to be like Last Comic Standing rolled into one glamorous package, and you got to be likable. And they always use the acronym CUNT for charisma, uniqueness, nerve, and talent. You have to have those things.
You know what?
So
I'll go for it. Sorry.
yeah. Oh yeah. Well, I think so. And then I think the ability to, that's where the Snatch Game Challenge really showcases who has all that, because it takes comedic timing. It takes the artistry of being able to do impersonation. And then it also takes that, I think we talked about last time, of how RuPaul really knows about pop culture. So you have to have a really well researched and developed character to be able to really synthesize the personality. Like somebody did like Dorothy from the Golden Girls the other day. It was really spot on because she really got on the nuance of what Dorothy Zbornak is like, that sort of thing. So it's kind of like you get it, you know, you can synthesize the characters and then have your own clearly defined vibe of like, oh, we know Jinx Monsoon, she's like the theater one, like from
What a great
Seattle.
name Jinx Monsoon is.
I think that's her name, Jinx Monsoon. Yeah,
I think, you know what, I have to say that person is now my favorite drag person based entirely on that name.
And it's funny that you said that, because Jinx Monsoon, she's like the queen of queens. Like they have the winners, right? And then all the queens come back and compete in an all winners episode, and she's the winner of all winners because she is the most well-rounded queen. She can sing, she can dance, she can act, she can make outfits, and she can do comedy.
Yeah. It's sort of, as you were saying that, it made me think of, remember the movie Cabaret? With Liza Minnelli, I think Michael York, and it's like the person, I can't think of the guy's name who played sort of the MC at the cabaret thing, but that sort of seems like what like a drag queen is probably shooting for, is the ability to have like the multi-talented, like you could be like, to be a cabaret MC, you have to do all of those different things. To be able to sing a little bit, you have to be able to make some popular jokes, you have to react to the crowd, you have to be able to do all that stuff. And
yes, that's exactly what it's like. That sort of well-rounded entertainer that has not just like jack of all trades, but kind of like mastery of everything, you know. Yeah. But if you're just a local queen, having a little bit of that in you for each thing you could be a good drag queen.
People underestimate how hard that is. That it's like that how hard it is to sort of be that level of somebody who can control the room, because it's like it only takes like one little off joke that doesn't land and you might lose half the room for like the next like half an hour. It's a really tricky tightrope to walk.
Nope, it really is. You know what, I love, if I could have any job, I would be an MC or a talk show host. I absolutely love doing that stuff.
That's one of the reasons I like doing this. And it's funny, go back to that comedian documentary, the Seinfeld one. There's a few points in that where he sort of stumbles a little bit, and you get the glimpse of, oh, this is Seinfeld struggling, and you sort of get what I just said, where it's like, oh, it's very easy to lose a room, you know.
Right.
Which is it's sort of like that thing where like you know, if you do 9 great things and one bad thing, people are going to remember that one bad thing. And it's like,
Yeah.
that's like that if you give a speech for 10 minutes and one of it is bad, they're going to remember that more than the other good 9.
I know that's lame, right? It goes back to the first thing we talked about of like remembering the threats, that
Yep.
sort of thing. Is like give people some grace. But if you're really skilled though, you can. I've always found it's good to like lean into the flub, like lean into the mistake, being
Yes,
like, okay,
yes.
that
Yeah,
one didn't
own it.
land,
So
moving
you
on. That
be the
sort of
first one to
thing.
laugh at it.
Be the first one to laugh at it. Yeah, get out in front of it.
Yep. Is that my
All right.
question or yours?
Oh, your question. Yep.
Oh, so I'm asking?
Yeah, because
Oh.
I asked you a drag queen question.
Yes. Oh, yeah. What is your most recent experience of joy?
Well, right now, this is joyous.
Oh, I'm
Yeah,
joyous too.
This is joyous. If we were talking very most recent, yeah, definitely. And then the client that just called to wish my husband happy Father's Day.
Stuff like that means a lot. I go out of my, I obviously don't have
Mhm.
kids, but I go out of my way on Father's Day and Mother's Day to text like my friends that are fathers and mothers just to wish them. Cause I feel like I want to show people that I care. And actually one of my friends is responding right now that I haven't talked to in a while. I'm just running my happy
Mhm.
birthday, my happy Father's Day thing. And it's like, I'm thankful that people are out there raising their kids right. Cause it's like, it's going to make all of our lives better,
That you're connected to that future too. You know what I mean? So I do appreciate getting text messages from my friends on Mother's Day and Father's Day. And he is the only client that's ever met my husband because of like an emergency situation that my husband had to like step in and help due to no other resources. And so,
Yeah.
that's really nice he did that. All right. Question. What is your favorite pizza? But do you even eat pizza?
I do.
Is it like
I
fish gluten-free pizza with no cheese?
Well, my girlfriend is gluten intolerant, so we don't eat as much pizza because it's tough to get good gluten-free pizza. But I do like pizza. That is where I will eat a little cheese if I'm gonna have some. I am pro pineapple pizza. I'll put that out there. I
Mhm.
like breaded eggplant, either something like breaded eggplant and like olives and maybe like onions together is good, or like maybe pineapple, onions,
Okay.
and stuff
So
like
what's your
that. Yeah.
favorite food as a person with a
I do
restrictive
love
diet?
I do love feta cheese on pizza too. That's when I really want to
I like feta cheese, but what's your favorite food as a person with
Well,
your
so
type?
I'm also have severe food allergies where I can't have nuts, shellfish, I can't eat apples. So I tend to eat sort of the same things. Like I'll eat a lot of smoked salmon, eat a lot of avocado toast. That's sort of some of my staples. I usually, because I sort of have had eating issues over the years, I try to separate joy from food whenever possible. Like I try to like make only a few, like I'll have like a little like something sweet almost every day, like something small. But I
Mhm.
have to be careful around food because it's been a problem for me in both directions, too much and too little at different areas of my life. Like I've
Oh,
had like,
separating joy from food, that's an interesting concept, right?
yeah, it's like the
Everyone's
concept of eat to live, don't live to eat. I try to
right.
sort of, because I just have
Mhm.
had problems with it before, so.
Yeah, that makes sense. That's also that eat to live, don't live to eat. That's another thing in the Nation of Islam that they always use. They have all of these cafes around in Indianapolis. One of the biggest Nation of Islam mosques is in Indianapolis, and they have the Eat to Live cafe. And it's like a brand of like they have their own businesses and things around, and they always really talk about the relationship with food because it's more like teaching of how to live your life on a daily basis than just talking about God or
Right.
Allah for them.
It's something that everybody has to deal with the issue of moderation around, where it's like, you can go your whole life without having sex, you can go your whole life without having a drink, and it's like, but we all have to eat, and there are all challenges around that mix of something that is both pleasurable and nourishing, and it's the one area that I think everybody is abstinence is not an option,
Right.
so
Right.
it's
Interesting.
what is something small someone in your life could do for you as a surprise that would truly make your day? Because I think especially we find when we're in relationships with people, back to the idea of treat people how they want to be treated rather than how you want to be treated. Sometimes people do little things that don't always land right because maybe they just don't know you the exact right way. But what is something that somebody could do that would really make your day? That would really hit the nail on the head?
Clean my car out.
That's a good one. I wish someone would do that to me right now, actually.
Like, I mean, that would just be so nice, like detail it and stuff. Like sometimes my husband gets fed up and he'll do it for me or clean my room. But yeah, clean my car out would be nice. Organize my art cart at work also as well. Just organize it really well. Get all the pins with the pins, the paints with the paints, the paper with the paper.
All right, you've heard it, people. You know what you can do to make her day.
Right.
Yeah,
All right.
we manifest through the podcast.
Yeah, we're manifesting that. I know. So somebody might step up. You never know. So that would be great. All right. This question is, what's the most reckless thing you've ever done?
Oh man, most reckless.
You don't
What
have
do I
to, you
feel
don't have to go
comfortable
to like
saying?
criminal or anything you don't want to, but
God, when he said no criminal, I immediately didn't.
you can. I'm just saying you don't
No,
want to.
there's definitely stuff. I mean, not that I really have that checkered of a past, but I've
Mhm.
definitely. I'm one of those people who. Oh, this is the good one. I remember about 5 or maybe this is longer ago. I was out on Sebago Lake in Maine, which is, if you don't know Sebago Lake, essentially if you're out in the middle of it, it's like being in an ocean. And I was out there with a really young childhood friend of mine whose family had owned like a little island out there forever. And I'd never really been out in the Sebago before. We've been drinking beers most of the day. And myself and my brother jump in the water, and immediately we both knew it was a terrible idea. And we
Mhm.
can see the boat. Immediately, it was just like, oh my God, like it was life threatening almost immediately because we totally underestimated how much whatever it was, like, how much it was, how much we've been drinking and stuff like that. And the
Uh-huh.
boat was getting away. So we both had to haul to really try to get back on. And when he got back on, the first thing my brother said to me was, and I remember this a lot, he goes, I thought only stupid people drowned. And like that's something that I think about a lot, where it's like, oh wow, that we could have drowned. Like, and I don't know that like our friend would have been in a position to really save us. And
Right.
he was also very much more athletic than us, especially at that time. And so he probably wouldn't have thought twice about us doing it. But that to me felt like, oh wow, life can really change at a very quick
Right.
pace. So that to me is something that, isn't going to get me
Interesting.
arrested
Yeah. I've
thinking
always thought
about
that
it.
too, of like, yes, if you drown, you must be an idiot. But I mean, no,
It's
it
easy.
could really.
It's easy to drown.
Yeah, like that's how it's. When I think I think I was on vacation with my mom and my sister, and we asked this question, and they were like, have pretty mild reckless things. And I was thinking about the reckless things I've done are almost like too shameful and to even find humor in.
I
You know
skipped
what
through
I
a few of
mean?
those too when I was getting to my
Yeah. I was
answer.
like, this stuff isn't even funny. Like this stuff is just straight up like shameful. So it's like
Right.
that's a conversation for like a therapist or for confessional with Jesus or something, because it's like, no.
Yeah.
All right, your question.
I think oh yeah. Do you think a truly great movie has ever been written by somebody sitting in a Starbucks on a laptop?
Sure, why not? Like, I mean, it might take more to like get it up and running or something, but yeah, I think it can be possible. I mean, yeah.
All right.
I don't know. The answer is yes.
All right.
I
Good
do.
enough.
Yeah. Okay, so let's go to, what's your favorite planet?
Favorite planet.
Yeah.
I always like Saturn. I like the flashiness of the rings. If I'm
Yeah.
drawing planets, which I do a lot because I do a lot of space art, I do like the rings. I think it's
What are the
that
rings made? Are they made out of ice or is that Neptune? Does Neptune have
I
rings?
don't know. I don't really get. It's like I don't know what they're made out of. Gas, atmosphere,
What's your
rocks.
favorite space thing? Like black hole, wormhole,
I've always been
quasar?
fascinated by black holes. I have a French poster of the
Mm.
Disney movie, The Black Hole, at the top of my stairs. So I remember that movie as a kid.
There's a
So
Disney movie called The Black Hole.
it was like one of those live action Disney movies they'd make a lot of in the 70s and 80s. I think
Okay.
Robert Forster's in it, and like it's one of those movies where it's like full of people who you sort of like half recognize,
Mhm. Have you
But
seen the movie? Uh, it's called. Is it called High Life? It's got Robert Pattinson. Is that his name? The guy that plays.
Twilight dude, Batman guy.
Yeah.
I don't
So
think
it's called High Life, and what it is it is a sci-fi movie, futuristic sci-fi movie where they take a bunch of criminals that are young and able-bodied, and they put them onto they instead of sentencing them to death, they put them onto a spaceship, and they all go out to try to harness the power of a black hole to give Earth like abundant resources to kind of harness this or whatever. And it is one of my favorite movies, but it kind of takes me to a dark place sometimes because it is very existential, but it's also a lot about taboos within, like, what are you willing to do? How will you, all the things that are taboo on planet Earth that you'll engage in when you're in space and you're going on a suicide mission, essentially.
that's
But it's
very
such a
interesting.
good movie. It is so good. It has Dre 3000, not
Oh,
Andre 3000 in it.
Smokecast, yeah.
Um, he's in it. He plays one of the astronauts or whatever, but it's good. Yep.
What's a misconception about Indiana that you think people from outside the state may have?
Oh, well, I think given political climate, Mike Pence is from here. It is a red state, but in Marion County, we live in the capital. The capital's not like that. The capital, and as you see in lots of places that could be a red state, the capital is like the liberal part. This is where it's very open and free, and everybody's welcome here, and we just don't have those attitudes. And I honestly don't know if the mayor is Republican or Democrat. Whether he is, he still is like liberal leaning in like what we do here and stuff. So there are places, and surprisingly, my hometown, Terre Haute, which is hillbilly, but it still has always been a Democrat voting town, and Democrat voting county, wherever all the other counties surrounding us are red counties. So not every place is super turbo conservative, and the places worth visiting would be the ones that are
It's funny.
leaning.
I asked this. I did one other round of these 79 questions with my man Concept, the astronaut down in San Antonio, and I asked him the same question, and his response was pretty much the same: is that people here aren't as racist as you're led to believe that they are.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
he's like, basically, he's like, politically, institutionally, yes, that's true in a lot of places, because like on a day-to-day basis, it's not the way you think it is. And it's like I think you kind of gave a different version of that same answer. And it's interesting to think that like that, to me, is one of the biggest misconceptions that people have about othering people, is that it's like it's usually not as bad as you think it is,
Yeah, no, that's right. I mean, I feel like you could find a pocket of people you fit in with wherever you go. I bet that would be my hope, that you could find people to connect with, whether you're left or right or whatever, but yeah, I think that's a misconception.
Though the truly vile people are probably even worse than you think they are. That's the other side of it.
That could be a good takeaway from it too,
Yeah.
So
Is
all right. So let's see the next one. Oh, this is my son's. So these next two questions came from my son's friend, and then my son. My son's friend just said, "What's your favorite color?"
My favorite color has always been blue. I like light blue. Like in general, I like the combination of light blue and like orange and yellow. I
love that. Yeah, I love that color combo. I like turquoise, kind of like the lights in your room, and orange. I like, because those are kind of opposite on the color wheel.
Yeah, I call that like Tron blue. Like if you ever see the movie Tron, like the blue that's sort of in that's sort of like my favorite color.
I like that. So here's the second question was, I said, no, you got to go weirder than that. And so my son ask him, what would he do if his mom married an 18-year-old man?
Oh man, it's funny. There's this story I'd love to tell, but I don't want to get into it at all. Maybe I'll tell you off air. That I can't even, whatever. But what would I do if I would probably, I think it would depend on specifically what I thought the actual situation was that was going on. Like my first, like, I feel like I'm jumping over the fact that this maybe is like, if I believed it was to be a real genuine relationship, I would have to wrap my mind around how that would work. And I'd like to think that maybe if that was the case, I'd find some way to accept it. But I would be pretty quickly looking for whatever angle was involved, like what it was about, I don't know whether my mom is taking advantage of this young person, or this young person taking advantage of my mom. It would be based upon whatever I whatever I figured out was related to that. I'd be reacting to that, whatever it would be.
Yeah. Yes, I know. I was like, that was odd that my kid, because at first he asked, what would he do if his mom married a 72-year-old man? I was like, well, his parents
My
might
dad,
be like,
I believe, is right around 72.
Yeah, so I was like, no. And then he's like, okay, fine, 18-year-old man. I was like, okay, that's a better question. So yeah, I would definitely be looking at the angle, like, who's benefiting from this? Like, either you're waiting on her to die to get a life insurance, or you're like abusing him because he's like young and hot or something. But if abuse is consensual on both ways, then fine, have at it. Just don't make me call you dad.
Yeah, I know. What's the best museum in driving distance of you?
Within driving distance, the best museum, well, it could be the museum. There's a couple, but I'd say the Idle Drug Museum is the first place where I ever did a fashion show, the Day of the Dead fashion show, and that is a museum for indigenous art, of indigenous to Indiana and to indigenous people. I feel like I'm not saying that right. That sort of thing. That's a really neat one. And right around there's Indiana State Museum, and those are very like earthy, historical type of artwork, that sort of thing. Landscapes, Native American pieces, things like that. But I say there's some really exciting artwork at Newfields, which is within driving distance. And Newfields used to be called the Indianapolis Museum of Art, the IMA. And they have this really cool exhibit called Loom, where you go into the room and all of the art is like projected onto the walls.
I like
And you kind of
something like
have
that.
this like sensory experience and stuff, but you walk in there, these big opening and closing things. But the coolest museum in the whole town is the Indianapolis Children's Museum. It's the biggest children's museum in the nation. And it has these dinosaurs coming out of the building. It has this, I mean, you should look it up. It really is the biggest
It
children's
sounds
museum
cool.
in the nation. It is the neatest place. They have the coolest stuff. They have the dino sphere. So when you walk in, it is this huge dome, and it kind of replicates what it would be if you were in the world of dinosaurs. There's like archaeological digs, and there's Egyptian stuff, and there's like, it's just the coolest thing ever. But I remember this when I was in the dinosphere with my kid when he was like 1. He's like could walk, but he's like still a baby or whatever. The place is packed, right? It's like butt to butt, bumper to bumper, with the strollers everywhere and stuff like that. My kid wants to get into this pit where there's a bunch of dinosaur costumes you can put on. Kids are all put on dinosaur costumes, like the one with their little face sticks out and stuff.
Yeah.
And and I'm overwhelmed with anxiety because there's so many people in there. There's kids screaming everywhere. There's all these moms. Everybody's clutching for outfits and stuff like that. And I just took the outfit off of him. And I was like, we're getting out of here. I can't take it anymore. And he starts crying. And all the moms go, boo, boo, boo. Like all these angry moms were booing me because I took him out of there and he cried and stuff. And I was just like, shame.
Man.
Yeah, I ran away into the Egypt exhibit and hid in one of the pyramids until everything calmed down.
Go hide in this sarcophagus until the ship goes over.
Exactly. Close it over me and like peek out and be like, is it done yet? So yes.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Is that my question or yours?
I think you just asked about the museum. So all right.
Yeah.
So oh yeah, when you first met me, was I as you expected?
I think I didn't know what to expect. It's funny, like I think about this a lot with the interviews. When I first started interviewing people that I'd never met before, I felt super nervous about it. And I would be like, well, what's this person going to be like? What if this is impossible to do? What if whatever? And now I'm only in episode like 30 something now. It took that little amount of time for me to go, it'll be fine no matter what. And it's like, so that was to me one of the benefits of doing this. So for me, I think by the time I was talking to you, I wasn't too nervous. The thing that I'm always most nervous about when talking to someone I don't know is that they're going to be kind of crazy in a way that I don't know how to deal with.
Yeah.
Like, or sort of like, I always worry that it's like, oh, I've misjudged the way this person presents themselves. Cause I'm usually I have a pretty good, I don't like dealing with people that are just like off the rails. And that's always my biggest nerve about anybody is this person off the rails? And am I going to somehow exasperate it or
have you experienced that yet with any of your interview people?
I have not. And I think it's because I'm pretty good at like kind of sniffing people out.
Right.
There have been people that I've talked to during the process of people that are interested where it's like, there've been red flags and I'm just like, I don't want to embarrass somebody, and I don't want to get in a position where I just have somebody say something that's insane and I just sit there and don't really confront them because the point of this isn't for me to do that. And then I don't want to be like, well, you didn't say whatever. And I don't want to record something afterwards and go, that's not going to air. So I try to I'm sort of the measure twice, cut once type.
Okay, that's smart. That's a smart way to do it. Some people like it when things go off the rails. Like some people can handle with that, or like it's like it becomes some sort of shock value shit show. But I think like if you really want to respect the like dignity of the people and you don't want to be exploitated, yeah, that sort of thing. But I saw like when you advertise, if you want to be interviewed by Articulate Ox, here's my information. So that opens the gate, for people to be like,
yeah, I know. And it's funny. It's like, it's the people that respond are never who you expect. The people you get way better guests than you thought you would have. And then you get some people you're just like, I don't know what, like I'm like, you think like the version that you see of yourself is not what I see of you. And I don't know, whatever.
Yes.
But
yeah,
you were actually, I was very impressed in talking to you, just like, I don't want to say how like put together you are, but like just how like you're a real you have leadership skills, and that was one of the things that I took away from the past thing that I was very impressed with. Like you're somebody who I feel like has very strong leadership skills, and that's something that a lot of people don't have, and it's a very valuable trait. And I was like, oh, you're somebody who people believe in, and that's, I think, a really awesome thing, you know.
That's good that that was your takeaway, because that's, you know, I had a conversation with Lewis, my Illuminati friend, or the one that's afraid of, but he said something like, you know, you deserve all the support that you get because you know, you inspire people, or, you know, this sort of conversation in one of his more lucid moments or whatever. That meant something to me. So I like that. And I'm glad that that was your takeaway from that, because I like to be a leader, and I like to think I can be a good leader, you know.
Are you somebody who, when things go wrong, people look to you in the moment? Like,
this is the way that I just found that, and I wasn't always like this. I mean, it took some growth, but that I will step in and manage the situation. Everybody's like panicking, people in staffing are like going nuts because they're being micromanaged or something. Just step in and start and be diplomatic. Like, how are we going to solve this problem? Like, you said this here, you said that, here's a compromise. But I don't necessarily have people that come to me, I'd say, when they have a problem, of course, other than clients, like in my personal life. But I think naturally, when there is something that arises, like organically, that I can step in and solve that. My husband's also really good at that as well.
it's funny. So I'm sort of like, I remember once I was at a grocery store in the aisle, and the woman right next to me just had a seizure. And I was the only person who I reacted like instantly, and like I did. And then once people were there, I walked away, and people were just like, I just froze. And I'm like, I have this thing where in the moment I instinctively, I'm really good like that. But like 3 days later, for some reason, all the anxiety hits me at once. And I'm just like, it happens to me almost every time. In the moment it happens, I'm really good, but it's almost like there's always a wave of like anxiety a few days later that I feel
Interesting. It's like a delayed reaction, because whatever your instincts are kicking in at the time, and then it hits you. But thinking of that now, when I think about, I described the intern who is a very, very cautious person. We were driving a work minivan on the highway where two highways convene. The van runs out of gas. She's the one that has the wherewithal of like, we need to get out of the van. Because I was just sitting there, semi blasting by, the van's like rocking and stuff. And she's like, we actually need to get out of the van. And I'm about to swing the door open on the highway. She's like, no, you're going to get on the passenger side.
Very easy to die that way.
We're going to walk to the grassy meadow, and we're going to call 911. And she kept it cool, calm, and collected, because she's always like ready for a disaster. So like, she was able to like use those skills and stuff. I just like kind of go through life without that. But I'll tell you, when we were camping this past weekend, and there was a man, I heard footsteps crunching in the leaves, because my head is on the ground because I'm sleeping in the dirt. Outside my tent, I heard human footsteps. Outside the tent, there's a man with night vision goggles on, looking for his cat Smokey or whatever. And I was like, okay, this is, you're wearing night vision goggles at a campground. And I panicked. I was like, what the fuck? You know, I was not calm, cool, and collected at all. I got really upset. Then I heard munching. There was a raccoon eating corn nuts out in front of my tent. They were my corn nuts. I left them on my bed. Then the black widow spider came, and my friend, she kept her cool way more than I did. So
this is why I like being inside.
Yeah, totally. I mean, like, that's why everybody had a camper except for us. Like, I appreciate the experience, but the daytime activities were great. Nighttime activities, sleeping outside in nature, was just a little bit too much. I mean, and who the fuck owns night vision goggles? Buffalo Bill, that's who. Yeah.
Point. What's a singer or artist that you got teased for liking when you were younger?
Say it again.
What's like a singer or an artist that you got teased for liking when you were younger?
Well, I had, and like my older sister, she was always really into like grunge and alternative stuff, things like that. And so we always made fun of her for listening to some things that she listened to. But I don't really think that I was really made fun of for anything. I remember, do you know who They Might Be Giants are?
Yeah.
Yeah, right. Okay, love them.
Istanbul, not Constantinople.
Yeah, yes, I know. I love that. I love them. I love. It's like either turbo nerds or little kids listen to their music, and I just love both populations and stuff. So
we're fans of Malcolm in the Middle.
Yeah, Malcolm in the Middle, right? I saw them at the Music Mill. And actually, I'll tell you, the closest I ever came to getting into a fist fight with other women at a concert was at a They Might Be Giant show. Of all the shows, the least edgiest of them all, I almost got into a fight with these girls at They Might Be Giants about who was the bigger fan, who'd been following them longer or whatever.
Oh my God. Funny, yeah. The Gin Blossoms and Toad the Wet Sprocket played like 10 minutes away from me yesterday. We were debating almost going.
Yeah, that's the kind of stuff that my sister listened to. So that sort of thing. But I can't remember ever being made fun of music that I liked. Because I didn't like music that did make it fun, was made fun of, like New Kids on the Block. I never liked that. I never liked NSYNC or Backstreet Boys or stuff like that, you know.
I was just making fun for rap. I was the only person that liked rap, and it was like that was like hilarious
Everybody
to
makes
people,
fun
I
of you
guess.
for liking rap. That's such a strange thing to me because rap has always been cool.
Right. In
It's
the
a, I
early
mean,
90s in my small town, it was like I had people that consistently, you just wish you were black. You just want to be black. I must have been said
what
that
were
to
they
me.
listening to? Like country music or something?
No,
Or
like Metallica, like Guns N'
oh,
Roses, like, stuff
okay.
like that. Like, all that.
Yeah, that's really weird. No, rap was always the thing. I mean, back to, I'm thinking back to like third grade when MC Hammer was out, Vanilla Ice and stuff like that. Hip hop has just always been like a huge popular thing. Yeah. Too legit to quit is exactly.
Yeah.
And I use that phrase every day. Like, look, this is too legit to quit. You don't never give up,
Right.
get your whatever.
And Hamster was
Insert your
gangster as a motherfucker in real life. That guy
Mhm.
didn't take any shit off anybody. Ask MC
Mhm.
Search. He almost had him killed.
Yes, MC
Allegedly.
Search was from he sang the song
Pop.
MC's Pop the
Back.
Weasel,
Yeah, pop pop goes the weasel. The weasel. Yeah, third
third
base.
base, right? Third base. So MC Search was the host of this show called Miss Rap Supreme and another show called The White Rapper
I
Show.
remember
Do
the
you
White
remember
Rapper
those?
show. Yep.
I
I
liked
know
both.
someone who was approached to be on that show.
Really
Yeah.
interesting. So I loved those shows, and those are shows that you can't easily find the reruns of, not on
Yeah.
YouTube or anywhere else. Miss Rap Supreme, though, I really loved that show because it was all female rappers and stuff. But I just love MC Search, though.
Yeah.
And he'd say "step off," and then he'd throw their sneakers up on the wire and stuff like that when they got
He's
too
got a
fast.
couple of podcasts. He's also a recovery
Mhm.
guy. He was severely addicted to marijuana and he's been sober now for a bunch of years. He talks
Mhm.
about it a little bit on podcasts. So he's a
Yeah, that's really cool. They also had that song called "The Gas Face."
yeah, with the guy with MF Doom. Like
Yeah,
he kind of helped give MF Doom, who to me I'm a
yeah.
huge fan of his start. Like they were like childhood friends.
Yeah. Gas face was like a diss that like the older boys at my school would
Yeah.
say about ugly girls. They'd say they got the gas face or whatever. Like it was sort of
Yeah. Which was
Okay.
like the original intent of it was when a girl gives it to you, like she just looks at you like, nah, man, you smell bad. You're getting the gas face. It was like that was like,
Right.
so
Oh no, they found a way to switch it and be like, nope, you're the ugly one, not
yeah.
me. It has
You're
nothing to do with
ugly
you.
like gas. Like, all right, whatever. How quickly we get away, we stray
Yes,
away
you're a
from,
fart face is what
yeah,
you
it's
are.
essentially,
Yeah.
whatever.
Okay. Is it my turn to ask a question? Yes. All
Yeah.
right. What Netflix scandal are you currently watching, or any scandals? Are you watching
Um, the
scandalous
one
stories?
that like I saw that I keep telling people about, but no one's interested in actually watching is like the Jared Fogle documentary of the subway
Yeah.
guy on HBO. Because it's 3 episodes, and if you've ever, and not that this dude has a lot of like fans out there going like he was framed, but if you ever for a second thought that guy wasn't guilty, strap on because it's shocking he only got 15 years when you hear some of the stuff that you have
It
that
is
guy admitting
shocking.
on tape. Have you seen
And it
it?
is funny. Yeah, go no, finish, please finish. Tell me about Jared Fogle.
It's just it's wild. It's just that documentary, if you can stomach it. And I'm one of those people who I can't really watch 5 minutes of like
Mhm,
CSI because the fictionalized version of stuff really, really turns my stomach. But when it's the
mhm.
actual version of it, I'm just like, yeah, I'm here for it. I want to give me the rundown. That one pushed me because that is one creepy motherfucker.
He is one sick fucker. I'll tell you, and that is
Indiana's
interesting.
own, right? Isn't he from Indiana?
Indiana, and here's an interesting, so we'll come full circle in our conversation. Indiana, he went to Indiana University. He was married to a friend of a friend.
Oh,
His wife was married. He was one of my friends, was friends with her, and she was married to him. But my painting teacher at Heron School of Art and Design, Doug Daniel, who does all of the portraiture for all of the great deans, he teaches oil painting, right? He's this prolific portraiture artist. He was the courtroom illustrator for the Jared Fogle case. And he did that because he had a student who got the job and she was too afraid to do it, too nervous. And so he went in and he did it. And he said in the penalty phase, it was so hard for him to capture the like hunched patheticism of Jared Fogle during this, thing and having to, his artistic standards and stuff. But I just thought that was so wild to be the courtroom illustrator for the Jared Fogle case or any case for that
yeah.
matter. But that
That
was
sounds like
was
someone I
cool.
would love to interview, because it's like I
Mhm.
love the idea of like art can kind of weird play. I have so many questions like
Mhm.
what happens to those? It's like could you sell that on eBay? Is that something somebody would
Mhm.
buy? And it's just like
Mhm.
there's that. And I also want to talk to somebody who designed. I went on a Google search the other day trying to find somebody who designed like the laser shows they do at planetariums, like Pink Floyd laser shows. And I've yet
Oh
to
yeah.
find a
Mhm.
human being that can track down to you for that. But the
No,
idea of
that's
having someone
interesting.
like that and a court, or if that dude wants to talk about that, tell him to hit me up. But like the
Pink
idea
Floyd
of
Laser
talking to
Live
like,
Show. He would be interesting. He would be interesting to talk to. He's done some interesting portraits, but there's somebody on Instagram you could follow who is a courtroom illustrator who's also part of the indie sketch movement here. Avidor Art, Avidorart. He is he is a courtroom sketch artist. Him and his wife, they're older people that came from New York and they live here for some whatever reason. But he does all kinds of kind of satirical sketches on his
oh,
Instagram.
that's
But he's
cool.
somebody, yeah,
I'll check him
it's
out.
cool. They're kind of political, but that'd be an interesting one to look at. But yeah, Doug Daniel, and he was actually from my hometown, from Terre Haute, Indiana, and he just happened to come up here and he teaches at Heron Room Art School.
Yeah. All right. Do you have an inner monologue? And I've heard some people say some people claim they don't have one. I feel I have one that I feel is going on like even when I'm sleeping.
I
How
mean,
about
yeah,
you?
I mean, is that just like my internal voice to myself or whatever? What
I
are my
guess
thoughts in
so.
my
For
head?
me, it's like, is there somebody like narrating your life as you're living it, and is that person you? Like, because that's sort of like,
Yeah, I wouldn't call it like that. I mean, there's always a constant train of thoughts, but it's not ever like, and then Katie, went into the kitchen and she found herself with hunger pangs and needed not like a narration in that way, but it's usually like I'm thinking about something I'm not doing. It's usually like I'm not thinking about what I'm doing at the time,
yeah.
unless I'm really enthralled in what it is or like in the state of flow or something. But yeah, there's always train of thought going all the time.
All right.
So
You're
that
up.
was all my questions. Do you have any more
Oh
questions?
yeah, I actually had like 10 more.
Okay.
All right. What's the last thing you've done that could be considered art?
Well, I would say what I did when I went camping. We did cardboard art where we had, because we didn't have anything to paint on, but we had paints. And so we considered painting on logs that would absorb the paint a lot. And so we had cardboard. And so we ripped the cardboard, and it has the bumpy layer underneath.
Yep.
We used the corrugated cardboard or whatever to create like different mountain ranges, and we used a different texture of like the smooth cardboard to like the kind of textured cardboard, then to like the bumpy parts underneath. And we made mountain ranges and stuff. So I would consider that to be art. Not anything that is, you know, super good or anything like that, but it was fun for the
No,
time.
art for the sake of art.
Mhm.
If you inherited a house with carpeting in the bathroom or wood paneling on the walls, which one would you replace first?
Totally the carpet.
I
I
can't
live with
understand carpeting in the bathroom.
two dudes, and somehow there's pee that doesn't get in the toilet. I mean, I swear, look, not taking any blames, but I think the people with the penis that aren't sitting on the toilet are probably the one getting the pee on the ground.
Probably.
I'm not taking the blame for that. And I wouldn't be cleaning the carpet either if that was the case. So
That's one of
like
those
the top
things.
on the
Yeah,
toilet, all that
I
stuff.
I don't I don't I don't get it. Whatever.
No carpet in the bathroom.
How has fashion changed since we last, met 2 or 3 months ago?
I don't know. I've been trying to find some things because I got promoted at my job to like a
Congratulations.
thank you. Yeah, since we talked, I've been promoted. I'll start my new position in the 1st of July or the first week of July. But so I've been trying to find some like business attire, that sort of thing. But I can tell you where I think is a
We're
stalemate.
both in full Dom Toretto right now. We both feel like we're about to be
Yeah,
part of the Fast and the Furious team with like no
yes,
sleeves and like
we have a
black.
matching outfits. Exactly, I like that. So, but I have found one thing that's not going anywhere is the spandex blend for business clothes. So you can have stretchy pants. I mean, that is just staying the same regardless of what you're doing. But I have been looking at Wrangler jeans again. Wranglers, like the kind of like country western wear jeans.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'd really like to have a nice pair of Wranglers, like with the big leather patch. And I got a really cool pair of red, white, and blue striped, like kind of like Uncle Sam looking Wranglers or whatever. I'm really excited to wear those.
Coming up, 4th of July. Check out our
That's what I'm
Instagram.
saying. I am a patriotic person. I got the pants ready to go, that sort of thing. So, but I don't really know. I don't know how fashion's changed. I just know what I was looking for business stuff, and it sounds like the stretch is not going anywhere. And I don't know if the Wranglers have stretch or not, but I'll keep you posted.
All right, cool. Lee does. I have Lee khakis that have a nice stretch to them that I like.
Okay.
Yeah,
All
so.
right. All right.
So last time we talked, I asked you a question about professional wrestler. You mentioned Ric Flair and that he was going to be at something that you were going to in a few weeks.
Yeah.
Did you get a chance to meet Ric Flair?
You know, he called in sick. He didn't show up for that. It was at
He was
yeah.
drunk. He was hungover,
Typical, right?
allegedly.
It was the O'Reilly World of Wheels, and I have this man named Lonnie. Lonnie is a person who is like my own personal hype man. He hypes up everything I do. He comes to all my events. Lonnie has a lot of time to dedicate to things, and so he's always at yoga. He's always at art. He's always at the fashion show. He hypes up everything I do to everybody, and in the moment, he's hyping the moment when the moment's happening. He's hyping. He's like, "Yeah, we're at yoga. Like, yeah," you know. He just always does it. He brings the water. He sets up the blocks. Lonnie had hyped up Ric Flair for me for 6 months because he knows all the things. He's like the trivia guy. He's the knowledge guy. He's been hyping up Ric Flair 6 months. Big day comes. Ric Flair, he sends me a picture of a handwritten sign that says, "Ric Flair will not be here. Sorry." Yeah. And like, that was it. It was like, that's it. All this build up for the King drip and he's not even here.
You know what? That's actually the perfect Ric Flair experience because Ric Flair is professionally satisfying and personally disappointing. Like that's sort of the story. Like that, I think that's what like the 30 for 30 about Ric Flair. That's the story that really tells is that the Ric Flair you see on television is amazing. The Ric Flair that in real life is you know, a little sadder. And I think that actually, like, you know, you may have had the real Ric Flair experience.
That's it. That if you want an authentic experience, that's what you get. If you want to see him, go to his job. He's not going to come to you.
He's not going to be there. Yeah. So,
right.
Let me see. What was the most surprising way that your life changed after becoming a parent?
Well, I just didn't, you know, I wasn't really that prepared or anything like that, but I really realized like that I could really rise to the occasion. I mean, like I kept him alive and healthy and like was able to work a job and also teach yoga and things like that. But just also like just laying down with him at nighttime and just like anytime where I felt any type of connection of something, I needed to give thanks to some sort of God for having this precious person in my life, you know. And like I'm not religious, I don't pray, but I would just say thank you, God, for giving me this child because he's so good. I've never had any problems with him. He's in like a high abilities class and I feel like I had never even taught him how to read. He like knows all these things. He's creative and thoughtful and empathetic and stuff. And so just having really being thankful for that sort of thing. But I always wanted a family and always wanted to have a child, and just having that sort of, I don't know, I mean, it changed. I became more responsible, you know.
Now, I'm not a parent at all, but I like to think about, there's a Mike Tyson quote where he said, everybody has a plan until they get punched in the face. And I feel like that's the way that, like, to be a good parent, that's the sort of advice I think that people should think about, because everybody has a plan when it comes to being kids, having kids, but I feel like you need to be ready for when your plan goes to shit and you get punched in the face. And I feel like that's that if you hear that quote, like trying to be able to respond to that quote is, I think, what could make somebody a good parent. As somebody who's never had kids.
That's a great quote. Everybody has a plan to get punched in the face. This is interesting too. So I went to the doctor the other day, and I'm really close with my doctor, and he was talking to me about how he's like, you know, I have women patients that come in here and they're divorced and then they have a kid, and he's like, and that's just nobody, you know, like that just like lowers your stock when you're a single mom. And I'm just like, you know what, I used to have that mentality
that gets the gas face.
That gets the gas face, yeah. But I said, but here's the thing, doc, is that like there are a lot of men out there that want to have a family. And when you have a really particularly precious child that's well behaved and intelligent and loving like mine, that like sweetens the pot for me. Like if anything, he makes me look better, gives me more of a package, because there's lots of men out there that would like to be a father. They've always wanted a family and they would make excellent father figures. And I married somebody who didn't want their own children, but one would consider having a stepkid or being a fun uncle. And he's a wonderful stepdad and gets to parent. But if it was, you know, to a person that felt like, I don't want my genetics in the gene pool, but I could be a father to a child.
I can relate to that a lot. I mean, that's, you know, we don't have kids, and my current girlfriend doesn't have kids, but like, I can relate to that mentality that I think I would be more likely to want to be a stepfather than have my own kids.
Yeah, and that's if
Yeah.
you have stuff in your family that you think genetically could like fuck the gene pool up or something, like you don't have to have kids, but it doesn't mean that you could never have an opportunity to be a father and would never want one.
Right, right. This is a question that I think is hopefully be helpful to people. What is something you do to prevent you from bringing your bringing your work home with you? That's something that I feel that a lot of people do. I think that there's
Right.
the negative side of it that you're bringing emotions home with you, but I also think the only thing that's less interesting than hearing about somebody's dream is hearing about their day at work.
Oh yeah, you're
I
right about
just,
that.
you know,
I know, and I have pretty exciting, outrageous work. Like
right.
example,
That's a good
like
point. You have
two
good
Fridays
stories too.
ago, I saw a fist fight between one client in a bikini, another one in a three-piece
I
tuxedo
was gonna ask you about that actually.
by
So
a dumpster. They're both smoking cigarettes. I mean, she's laying out there like it's a goddamn resort. He wants
yeah.
to go out there and press her. He puts on his three-piece to get in this fight, and I'm watching from the window, and I'm in my heart, I'm like, yeah. But then I'm like, in my professional mind, I'm like, break it up, whatever. But
Right.
not even that stuff gets old. But it is very hard. But here's the thing that they taught me, at least, that can be helpful sometimes, is that to end up the day, like how Mr. Rogers comes in and changes from his work suit into his lounge suit, right?
Yep.
To have a physical ritual when you come into the house, the physical ritual is what breaks the brain synapses from being in work mode into home mode. Having a physical ritual, right? And then also having a sensory experience, whether that's taking a shower, whether that's using like hand sanitizer that's scented, having a physical ritual and combining it with a sensory experience can help break that from being in work mode and coming back into home mode. And so
Excellent
that
point.
is the tip. I don't always use it, but when I do use it, it does work, that sort of thing. So,
All right.
mhm.
What reaction did you get from our last interview?
Well, I got some really good ones. So I have a couple of people that are dear friends that are actually super talented artists. And let me see if I can pull up what one of the responses was. Let's look here and see.
I have 3 more questions after this.
Okay. So this is from Ben. So Benaya Cusack, please follow him on Instagram. He is an artist I've worked with before. We've done fashion shows together. He would be an interesting one to
Sweet.
interview as
Check him out.
well. Yeah. Katy, I watched your interview with Articulate Ox. Fantastic. I watched the whole thing. Popcorn emoji, soda emoji. It was very interesting learning about your day job in mental health art therapy and getting to know you better. Heart emoji. You're one of a kind. Bravo to all you do. Work, WERK exclamation point. May the spark of creativity and inspiration always touch you. Indy should be proud to have you here. The art scene here rocks. By the way, I'm a Coke Zero friend. LOL. Every day, LOL. Have a wonderful week, Benaya.
Oh, that's nice. Hello,
Yeah,
Benaya.
so
Thank you
that
very
was
much for
nice.
watching.
Yeah, that was nice, so and then my Christy Marsh Watson, who unfortunately she was just hacked by like a Nigerian hacker because I saw on her
I
page
saw
like
that.
join my Bitcoining or whatever, and I was like,
Yeah.
this is bullshit, and that she was just devastated because that's like her portfolio, essentially that's how she's got all her contacts. She had to delete it or whatever, and everything's just lost and stuff. So she always gives me really good feedback. She's also from Terre Haute, so she understands like our kind of hillbilly white
Yeah.
trash place, motherland or whatever.
Yeah. Who would be
Oh,
your
and then wait, the feedback I got from my husband too is like, are you watching this again? Like, why? Like, why are you like? How many times have you watched this? Why do you keep watching this? So I have watched
man.
it quite a few times, but you can pick up on your idiosyncrasies and your movements and things like that when you see yourself, because you don't always see yourself that much. So
That is one of the funny things because I very rarely go back and listen to it's almost like a time perspective. It's like I've already lived it. Like if I were to go back and listen to all of these episodes, that's like 90 hours I've recorded already that this doesn't fit into my life, but it's
right.
like when I do, I definitely learn things about myself pretty quickly. And
Mhm.
like, oh,
Mhm.
I think I'm saying like and stuff like that and a lot less than I was back then. It's useful.
It is. I say stuff like that. I noticed that for my last one, saying stuff like that. It's like, stop saying that, that's like a verbal bridge, verbal crutch.
Yeah. Who would be your dream mentor?
RuPaul, probably. RuPaul is somebody that I feel like RuPaul. And then also, um, somebody, maybe Jim Beitman. He was one of the first he was my art therapist who was when I was in rehab years ago. I would love to hear from him now, because he kind of took the path of like being Indiana's first art therapist to being a fully, licensed one, to working in addictions, working in private practice. And then he went on to like the scholarly route where he's now a professor at a university, that sort of thing. I would like him to mentor me when it comes to art therapy. And then when it comes to like all things fabulous and all things like of just kind of like how to really be to blaze your own trail and do your own thing and like feel confident and look great doing it and all that stuff would be RuPaul. RuPaul has like a master class of like living your best life, of being fearless, all those things like that. That would be, and then also Teddy Roosevelt, if we could resurrect him from the grave.
Okay. Of the three, which of these most best represents Indiana? Janet Jackson, Larry Bird, or David Letterman?
Oh, I would have to say Larry Bird. I mean, like, David Letterman seems a little bit too sophisticated, like in his presentation. Janet Jackson, no. But Larry Bird to me represents Indiana. When I think of Larry Bird being just like kind of like a small town guy that made it big, that sort of thing. I think of Indiana like if Indiana was a town in the United States, Indiana would be like a small town place, and anybody that makes it from Indiana is like a real success story, because it's not like a place that you think of like full of like winners and stuff,
Right.
that sort of thing.
If Larry Bird was on the Indiana state quarter, I wouldn't blink. Like I wouldn't think that was weird at all. Like
yes, there's a huge bronze statue of Larry Bird outside Holman Center. Holman Center is the basketball arena for Indiana State University. There's this awesome big bronze statue of him right out in front with the Indiana State jersey on and stuff. So
he probably hates it. You ever see like the Kroll show? You ever watch the Kroll show, like the Nick Kroll show? It was a sketch show he had a few years ago on Comedy Central, and he does a thing where he plays Larry Bird in some of it, and it's just amazing.
Well, I saw this thing where like somebody it was a stand-up comedy bit where somebody just put a piece of pantyhose over their face and it looked like Larry Bird. They're like, look, I'm Larry Bird caught in a screen door or something like that. It's just this face. It was like, because Larry Bird has that kind of very face, so
yeah, he's yep. All right, last question. What's a piece of art that changed your life in a positive way?
Piece of art that changed my life in a positive way that I made, or any art out there?
I would say either or both.
Well, piece of art that changed my life in a positive way, I would say, would be one of the pieces when we talked earlier about when we had to do an art journal and we had to keep adding to a piece of we had to keep adding to the piece of prompt after prompt, and then give the piece of art to one of the people in our group to take home and add to that. So the second one I did was a full-on mannequin, head, body, everything like that. And what it really was supposed to be about was about body image. But as I was smoothing these pieces of collage, and you've probably seen me post pictures of this mannequin on my stories before, smoothing pieces on this woman's form, it really brought up a lot of like sexual trauma and things like that, which was really interesting, because you're touching this like perfect female form in a very like, I don't know, intimate way, but I'm also being super thoughtful about the images that I'm selecting, and the images that I select kind of take on this connotation of like patriarchy and marriage and like sexual trauma. And those things came out organically as I was using a female human form as the, medium, or as the thing that I was putting this imagery onto. Right. Really, so that was actually really interesting too. And I didn't even know it was going to take on that realm, but that whole sort of thing was really introspective about my own sexual trauma, my own views about marriage and things like that, and about just patriarchal things and what it is to be a woman and take it seriously and stuff. That was really interesting, and that has been described to me by other people, that it's like looking into the soul of humanity. This like weird mannequin thing that I made, and you've seen it. You can see a picture of my Instagram. That was really helpful, but as far as like as art that's really changed my life, I just think seeing like how skillful people are in my community at art making, and that people like that I can actually meet. Like if you go to like a museum and you think like I could never meet somebody who can make art this well, but when I see like when we did the Indy 500 show, those artists are just as proficient as an artist in the in the big museum,
Yep.
and their art sells for, you know, thousands and thousands of dollars. And I know these people, and they're like my friends, you know, I can actually meet these people and like pick their brain and get to know them and see what inspires them and stuff. So that sort of thing was really life-changing, of just getting to meet people, and artists that are having access to artists that
Yeah.
make really, really high quality stuff.
That's a great point too, because I think a lot of us are first inspired by something we see on television or hear on the radio or watching a movie. And that's great to get you the ball rolling, but it's usually the artists that actually can enter in your regular daily life that really, I find, you get the biggest lessons from and help move you further. Just having those conversations with somebody who is in your community, who actually knows the nuts and bolts of how to do this stuff. And like, it's because it's like there's learning to be an artist, and then there's learning to promote yourself. And it's like the artists that we're like really are fans of in the greater pop culture sphere, those are people who've succeeded at both of those things. But they're not, you don't have to focus on both of those things. You don't have to focus on both at the same time. It's like, if you're trying to look at how do I become the next Jay-Z, you're trying to like learn how to be an artist and promote yourself at the same time. And I think to some degree, especially in the beginning, you should be focusing on learning how to be the artist and focusing on the people in your community that help you form a group and help you start realizing what it's like to get your hands dirty and do this stuff.
No, I totally agree with that. And that's my lived experience. And also, like, look, learn how to be good first, and then the work can kind of speak for itself. People will pump you up, you know, people will believe in you when they see that you're really dedicated and you're making something that is either high quality or something that's new and fresh or something that's super engaging in the community. People will buy into it. And then from then, that's when you can build up from there. But yeah, I totally agree with that. Like, you know, learn the trade first, the promotion second. And if it's really something spectacular, people will promote it for you because they'll say, this is awesome. You know?
And the thing is too, like if you can't be successful in your own community, the chances of you convincing anybody on a larger scale that you're going to be successful is very limited. Like, it's like, I remember there was a thing a few years ago where it's like, why would a band, like a major, or even like a big indie label isn't going to sign an artist who unless they can like pretty much sell out consistent shows in their hometown. And it's like, but if you can already do that, you have way less need for a record label to begin with. It's like a weird catch-22 where it's like, if you're already at that level, there's a good chance you can probably take yourself to the next level without the power of that record company. But the record company only wants people that are already at that level, because it's like there's no secret sauce to be able to like do something for everybody. The person already has to be most of the way there, I think.
Right. I get it. Yeah, interesting. Well, fair enough.
Yeah. Well, that's everything. I mean, unless you have any other questions for me or any other things you're dying to know about Soma 79.
No, I think it's been very enlightening. I learned a lot of things about you today. So no, thank you. Thanks for the opportunity to talk. That was 3 hours.
Yes, that's the longest episode so far. So hopefully people made it to the end. I remember the last question that I asked Concept was, what message do you have for the people who made it all the way to the end? Like, that was the last question I asked. So do you have any special message for the people who have made it all the way to the end of this? Is there any secret password they can say to you that you'll hand them, like a Kit Kat bar or something?
Oh, I like that. Yeah, secret message. So the secret word for that would be Dr. Rhinestone. If they say that to me, then yeah, they get a special prize, and it will be a really good one. So Dr. Rhinestone, cool. Which is also the name I used to make dinner reservations at fancy restaurants.
I used to use Danzig, Danzig. They'd be like Danzig, party of two.
I like that.
Because they used to call my brother and I John Zig in high school, especially because he had like long hair like Danzig did, and like we were the John Zigs. Because the last name's Johnson. I don't know. But and the other thing too, in the comments, remember, Katy and Beaker versus myself and Miss Piggy in a game of doubles tennis. Whoever has the best answer of who would win will get a Soma 79 prize pack.
Yeah, prize pack. I know, I love that.
Promote it. I guess you know what? Maybe that'll be the clip. So
awesome. Cool. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. All right. You have a good one. We'll have you on again sometime. All right.
Okay, bye-bye.